This is 3 hours of car ball knowledge to watch in bed, starting with the 7 styles of car mods. Everybody loves to modify their cars, but 90% of the people that I know do it completely wrong. Today I'm going over 7 different builds so you can learn how to actually modify your car depending on what you want. If you're building a drift car, then there are 8 crucial steps you need to take to build an awesome sliding machine. And don't worry, I'm not talking about 500 horsepower big turbo drift missile bullshit. You just need something predictable, balanced, and relatively reliable. The first thing to look at would be your car's differential. If your car has an open diff, then let's take a step back real quick. Don't even try sliding that thing yet. The only person drifting a car with an open diff is going to be Ken Block. If you try drifting like this, one tire is going to be doing all the work while the other one is just watching. But you have a couple options here. If you have some bread, go for an LSD. If you don't, then it's time to lay down some welds. If you're trying to make a decent drift build, then get both wheels spinning or else. The next thing to worry about would be suspension. Let's be honest, your 20-year-old shocks are more beat up than a marketplace 240SX with 20 previous owners. If your car is bouncing through every corner, you're not going to be linking shit. When you're budgeting out this drift build, definitely set aside some extra cash for nice suspension. Nice coilovers are going to make a huge difference. That being said, you don't need anything too crazy like 3-way coilovers or some bullshit, but something in the mid-price range is going to be worthwhile. Just don't cheap out too much on coilovers because they're super important. While we're talking about suspension, you should definitely consider getting an angle kit. You don't need some Formula Drift NASA package, but more steering angle helps save bad entries and lets you hold a bigger angle without smacking into a tire barrier or a cement wall, better yet. Having a kit like this is super helpful for when you're starting out, so you have a little bit of extra room to correct your mistakes. There are other mods to help improve steering angle, like extended lower control arms or cut knuckles, so those options are worth looking into as well. The next mod that every drift car needs is a solid clutch. I'm gonna be honest, the stock clutch is probably not gonna work or last very long. When you're drifting, you're always gonna be kicking the clutch to get loose, especially with less horsepower. So upgrading to at least a stage 2 or performance clutch is definitely gonna be worth it. We also need to talk about cooling. Every new drifter ignores their car's cooling system until they're parked in the pits with steam pouring out like it's a vape convention. To avoid being that guy, upgrade your radiator and fans, make sure your intake temps are low, and maybe even throw in an oil cooler if you don't have one. The more cooling you have means the more track time you get. Drifting is abusive.
So fix it now.
After you get your cooling system figured out, maybe you should consider a hydraulic handbrake. This is actually a mod that I don't recommend, but I'm gonna throw it in here anyway. The hydraulic handbrake is almost like an oops I messed up I need to continue sliding button. A brake is for slowing down and it has no steez when it comes to drifting. But if you're new to drifting, you're gonna be pulling your handbrake anyway. And it's best not to snap your brake cable, so you might as well go with a hydraulic e-brake. It'll make it a lot easier since it will lock the wheels right away, and it takes very little effort to pull. That being said, hydros are for chuds, so it's kind of optional for a drift build. But something that I find mandatory is a bucket seat and steering wheel setup. If you're sliding around in your seat, grabbing onto the door panel every time you transition, that's not driving skill, that's just survival. Getting a bucket seat will have you planted in the car, and you won't even need to think about it anymore. You can put all of your focus into actually drifting the car instead of holding on for dear life. This is actually a huge mod. Last but definitely not least, the seat time mod. Before you buy the neon lug nuts and anime toe straps, you should probably spend your money on tires, gas, and event entries. The best mod for drifting is actually learning how to drift. It's pretty difficult to get good at, but not nearly as hard as rally driving. If you're building a rally car and the first things you bought were a shiny livery replica of the Audi Sport Quattro, a blow-off valve, and underglow, then we gotta restart real quick. Rally ain't no cars and coffee in the dirt. Rally is launching a car through the woods at irresponsible speeds, while rocks, potholes, mud, trees, and physics all try to kill you at once. Your car does not need to be flashy. It needs to be insanely durable and easy to drive. You're gonna have to follow these 8 steps to build this thing. Of course, we're gonna start with suspension, an absolute no-brainer here. This thing cannot be slammed on coilovers or stanced on washers. You're gonna need some solid suspension with good travel. When you're looking for rally suspension, here's what you're gonna need: inverted dampers, durable mounting ears, and the ability to adjust things like damping strength, ride height, camber, and caster. Basically just all that good stuff. Your car is gonna be going over bumps, jumps, potholes, and you can't have super stiff suspension or else you're gonna be airborne for half the race. The next thing you should invest in is a skid plate to protect your oil pan, transmission, differential fuel tank, exhaust, or really anything important that the ground could touch. It would take one softball-sized rock to turn your oil pan into modern art. If this happens mid-race, you and your co-driver are going to be going for a hike. Getting a piece of metal to cover these parts is a lot cheaper than replacing the parts most of the time, so it's definitely worth it. It doesn't really matter if the car doesn't stay on the track though. That's why you'll need to invest in a good set of tires. Good rally tires are surprisingly important. Gravel, snow, mud, whatever surface you're on, having the right tire for the job is crucial. If you bring street tires into rally, they're either blowing up or you're gonna spectate from a ditch. While you're getting your tires changed, you might as well pick up some mud flaps too. First of all, they look cool, but more importantly, they save your paint, keep debris down, and stop your car from getting sandblasted every time you drive. It's a functional reason to make the car look better, and it's likely that they're required in whatever event you're attending. More importantly, do you spend a lot of time on your phone? I need to put you on Tester Up. Tester Up lets you earn real money by testing apps. It's super simple. All you have to do is sign up, pick an app to test, then complete simple tasks like playing a game or answering survey questions. That's literally it. Also, you don't have to pay anything. It's completely free. You can choose which games you want to test and which surveys you want to answer. I saw this game that I wanted to test out. I just downloaded it, played it for a few minutes, and earned real money by sharing my feedback. It's really simple and a fun way to make some money. Everyone who signs up through my link gets a $5 sign-up bonus depending on where you live. I really like Tester Up because the payouts happen within 24 hours and go directly to your bank. Also, you can make up to $80 per app that you test, which is just insane. This app has a 4.2 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot and over 22 million users, so you know it's legit. There's constantly new things to do, so you'll definitely find a game that you already enjoy. Why not leave some feedback and earn some extra money? Download Tester Up for free right now by using my link in the description, the pinned comment, or by scanning the QR code on screen. Before you drive this thing for real, we should bulletproof the engine a bit. Rally cars work hard at all speeds. Not only will you be regularly hitting the limiter, but your car is also going to be covered in all sorts of elements. It's super important to have radiator protection, solid fans, clean airflow, and maybe even an oil cooler depending on the setup. Overheating 5 miles into a stage would be super embarrassing. I mentioned clean airflow, so let's talk about filtration for a minute. Clean airflow would come from a nice intake filter with sealed routing because keeping water and dirt out is mandatory. If your engine inhales some of the environment, that shit is locking up. Also, don't forget the cabin air filter because you don't want to be inhaling the environment either. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but having a roof scoop actually helps prevent dust from getting inside the car by pressuring the cabin. So maybe consider doing that. If you think it's hard to see with dust in the cabin, then try seeing with bad headlights. Driving 100 miles an hour through a forest at night is crazy, but doing it with stock headlights is psychotic. For a rally build, you definitely need to upgrade your lighting, or you're gonna end up in a tree. Make sure everything is wired up nicely so you don't go blind mid-race, and don't cheap out on lights too much. Remember the hydraulic e-brake I was hitting on earlier? Well, now is a time you might actually want one. I actually do recommend a hydro e-brake for this build because on a rally stage, it's not about if you will mess up, it's about when you're gonna mess up. A rally course typically isn't as forgiving as a drift track, so definitely make sure that brake is easy to grab when you need it. It's fair to say that the most important thing about a rally build is its reliability. So before you take this thing out, be sure to check up on the fluids, bushings, wheel bearings, brake lines, basically everything else. Rally exposes the weak parts of your car very quickly, so make sure you don't have many. Let's say you want to build a track car. If you're chasing big power numbers while building a track car, then you've got it all wrong. Track days are meant to be fun. It's all about driving your car hard and improving. Nobody cares what your car makes on a dyno when it's overheating and dripping fluids all over the parking lot. A big part of going fast on a track is being able to go slow, so you should probably upgrade your brakes. Not every car needs a brake upgrade, but if you're gonna whip your mom's SUV around a track for a couple hours, you're definitely gonna want to be able to stop eventually. Brake pads and rotors are important, but also upgrade your brake lines while you're at it. Your stock street pads were designed for stop-and-go traffic with the occasional Tesla brake check, not repeatedly going from 100 miles an hour down to 40. If your brake pedal goes soft after 2 laps, this is a massive issue, and your brakes are probably fading. But that's not as bad as going bald. I'm talking about tires. I know I keep mentioning tires, but I feel like most people don't understand how much of a difference they actually make, especially with a track build. Upgrading tires will completely transform the feel of your car more than most power mods ever will. With better tires, you get better grip, a shorter braking distance, you can accelerate faster, and you carry speed through the corners so nicely. If you're thinking about getting some nice rims, definitely put that money into tires instead. Those rims aren't going to look that great once they've been understeered into a barrier. The suspension setup for track cars is a lot different than it is for drift or rally. I feel like a lot of the reasonably priced, high quality coilovers are meant for track driving, which is nice. As well as coilovers, you can get some solid sway bars, which will make a huge difference. They don't change your car's vertical travel, but they keep the chassis from rolling through the corners. A bit of camber is good, but don't make that crap look weird. If you feel like you're on a roller coaster while you're driving, you're losing so much potential. Getting a bucket seat, figuring out a solid seating position, and proper steering wheel placement will make you that much better at driving. If you get comfortable in the car and don't feel like the car is controlling you, you're gonna shave a lot of time off your laps. Also, get some safety gear, dude. As you're improving, you're definitely gonna make some mistakes, and it's better to do that with a helmet than without. Most of the time, a track is gonna require that you have some safety things anyway, like a fire extinguisher, helmet, harness, tow hitch, and all that good stuff to keep you alive. So you might as well invest in it anyway. If your main motorsport is about arriving somewhere safely and comfortably, parking at an angle, and standing next to your engine bay with a matcha in hand, this build list is for you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with building a car strictly for meets, cruises, looking suspiciously clean in parking lots. No hate at all. Not every car needs to set lap records or be able to hit clutch kicks in an industrial loading zone. Some cars are just built to be cool to hear and look at. There are a lot of things that can go into a build like this, but the foundation for any good show car is a nice pair of shoes. Good fitment and a nice set of wheels can completely turn an average car into a neck breaker. Bad fitment kind of makes you look like a poser. Definitely figure out your ride height and wheels first. This isn't something that you'd have to worry about with any of the previous builds, but keeping a show car clean makes a huge difference. Consider grabbing yourself a detailing kit and some other cleaning products. Half of the battle at Cars and Coffee is paint condition. No one likes rusty, sunburnt hoods with paint flakes. Learn how to buff out all the small scratches and imperfections, and you're probably good to go. The next thing that makes a really good show car is a nice exhaust. Notice how I didn't say straight pipe. I'm talking about a tasteful exhaust that genuinely sounds good. If you're the trumpet pulling up to the meet, you're probably not going to get any respect, but you could probably make up for it with a really nice interior. Those are super important for builds like this. You're going to need a clean steering wheel, tasteful shift knob, sporty seats if they fit the build, and just a mint looking interior overall. If your headliner is sagging, you might actually get kicked out of the meet. People absolutely look inside your car when you walk away, so if the passenger seat is filled with McDonald's wrappers, empty energy drink cans, or other junk, you'll lose even more respect. Keep that thing clean, dude. Another important part of the interior is a sound system.
I call them the dogs. Listen to them bark.
You're gonna want to invest in the sound system a good bit. Having high quality audio with a nice head unit shows that you know what you're doing. Going with a brand like Sundown or JL for the subwoofer shows that you're not cheaping out and you know what's up. Upgrading the tweeters and other speakers is super important too. Bass is cool on its own, but it will not make up for shitty high notes. It's not too hard to swap or clean your headlights. Having clean headlights and taillights makes your car actually look that much better. If your shit is foggy and yellow, it makes the whole rest of the car look old. Sometimes, and this is a hard sometimes, ambient lighting inside the car can look cool, I guess, depending on how well you do it. I'm definitely not talking about TikTok shop RGB rope shit. I mean just like some nice interior lights. I don't know, you know what I mean. Clean your engine bay. Having a build without rusted out headers and loose wires everywhere is gonna clear the car parked next to you. If your junk looks all shiny and organized, people are gonna be drooling all over your car, I swear. Whenever people ask to see what's under the hood, you'll actually be confident enough to show them for once. The social mod is also pretty huge for this car scene. Learn how to talk to people and the rest will come naturally. If you pull up to a car meet and just sit in the corner on your phone, you're not gonna be able to learn shit about cars or meet new people. You should be complimenting other builds, trying your best not to rev bomb the parking lot, and possibly even smiling at people if you're feeling super brave. I don't know. Here's the harsh reality. At a car meet, no one is gonna have fond memories of the dude with the loudest exhaust. They're gonna remember the chill driver with a super clean build. If you're into this clean style of modifying cars, but aren't really into the over-the-top polishing bullshit, then maybe you just need to learn how to build a really clean daily driver. If you want to modify your daily, and the first thing you think of is to install coilovers, let me try to talk some sense into to you. A daily driver has one main job: start every morning, get you where you need to go, and make sure you don't hate owning it. It's pretty simple when you think about it. Somehow, a lot of people forget this and turn their commute into a punishment ritual. I may or may not be one of these people. As I was saying with the coilovers, suspension mods are going to be super noticeable in your daily. Honestly, the stock suspension is usually going to be good enough, but if you'd like a nicer looking ride height with a similar driving feel, lowering springs are probably the way to go for you. You could go with coilovers if you get some high quality comfortable ones, but trust me, if your car starts jumping over every crack in the road, you're going to get tired of it eventually. If you don't get tired of it, your passengers will. We also need to talk about the maintenance mod. I know you wanted a catback exhaust and some awesome carbon fiber mirror caps, but if you're going to modify your daily at all, you should make sure it's a really solid car before you do anything too crazy. So before you put straight cut gears and a big turbo on your daily driver, just think about that transmission noise on the 15th hour of a road trip. Cleaning, one of the most overlooked mods, guys. Keep your shit clean. If you're gonna throw all your garbage on the ground in the back, you should try cleaning it out when you get home. I'm not talking about insane detailing like with the show cars, but just keep your junk in order. Comfort is one of the most important parts of your daily driver, so here's some things you should consider to improve it. Try getting some legal tint installed by a professional. You could do it yourself, but it's low-key worth it to just have someone else do it to you so that shit doesn't bubble up. Better speakers are a game changer as well. You don't need anything too impressive to show off at a car meet or something, but I definitely think having some good bass and upgraded door speakers is worth it. If you can't drive, you could consider a backup camera as well. If your seats are uncomfortable, you could get some more sporty seats that hug you a little more, but also aren't actual racing bucket seats. If it's cold where you live, you could also get a remote start. Or if it's warm where you live, you could also get a remote start because they're cool anyway. If you have an older car, maybe consider ripping the interior out and installing some sound deadening. Having a quiet ride for the daily can be pretty nice. Make your car into something that you actually want to drive every day. These mods are ones that you would actually appreciate every time, not just once a month at a car meet. Try some tasteful exterior mods as well. Good light bulbs, restored headlights, a clean front windshield, maybe even some cool fog lights. Having a daily driver that allows you to see at nighttime is awesome. Having shitty headlights isn't really okay for any car, but especially not your daily driver, which you'll probably be driving through some rough weather and dark nights with. Now I want to talk about some fun mods for daily drivers. Getting a sport intake that's specifically designed for your car can be really nice. It's not going to make chassis twisting power or anything, but you might at least get better throttle response and cooler noises from the car. The exhaust can easily be up, so tread lightly when you're messing with this one. You can't really go wrong if you're just deleting or swapping the mufflers, but your daily can be almost unbearable if you make it sound like shit. This one really depends on your car, so do your research, but in my personal experience, I kind of regret putting catless headers on my car because the exhaust note just does not sound that cool at the low end anymore. In my opinion, cosmetic mods for a daily driver should be pretty minimal, meaning OEM plus, meaning just make the car look a little better than it did from the factory. Your first few mods probably shouldn't be anything that'll sacrifice comfort until you're ready to actually make this thing into a race car. If you don't care about any of this and would prefer no comfort mods with all power, try building a drag car. If you're building a drag car, your first thought is probably going to be about making big power. If you actually want to make some decent times, you're going to need really good grip and an awesome transmission. Drag racing looks simple on the outside. It looks like they're just flooring it in a straight line, which is wrong. Sort of. Drag racing is about putting all of the power down as well as possible without turning your drivetrain into dust. I'm gonna say it again, tires. Drag radials, slicks, correct tire size, proper pressure, it all matters. Horsepower doesn't mean anything if it doesn't get put to the ground. Yeah, it's boring, but it's the truth, unfortunately. At least with a build like this, you can get some thick tires that are gonna look sick. The next thing you wanna think about is not breaking your shit. The stock driveline parts on most cars are good enough for a daily, but they don't love hard launches on sticky tires. Be sure to upgrade the differential, get some stronger axles, and a fatter drive shaft if you're making really big power. If you skip this step, expect a loud metallic noise to follow you until the finish line. As far as suspension goes, weight transfer really matters. You want the car to plant the tires, not squat weirdly in fishtail. So you should find some suspension that helps make this happen. The last thing you want is to be popping wheelies and catching air or some shit. Actually, the last thing you want to be doing is blowing up. so be sure to upgrade the cooling system. Cooling a drag car is a bit different than other builds. A lot of drag cars run a compact radiator, but in some classes, they remove it entirely and rely on the cool down between races. You could also get an electric water pump so the car can cool down while the engine is off, which is huge for cooling down between runs. Switching to an electric fan is also pretty cool because the mechanical ones just rob a tiny bit of that precious horsepower. As far as the fuel system goes, it's super important because you want more power. You're gonna have to supply it with more fuel at once, which means upgraded injectors, upgraded fuel pump, stronger lines, high quality fuel, and probably consider building a fuel cell as well. Having a fuel cell means you can fill up enough for the race without adding too much weight. Definitely get this thing tuned as well because you need to have a pretty perfect air-fuel ratio. Weight reduction is very easy and essential to drag racing. You don't need some cushy seat bullshit while you're trying to make some good time. Take out all your trash, sound deadening, gut the interior, whatever it takes to make this car lighter. As far as safety goes, you should definitely have a helmet, good brakes, drive shaft loops, and somewhat light roll cage. A harness depending on the speed and rules, and maybe even a parachute if you're a freak and got motion like that. Fast cars need stopping plans. For a build like this, it's good to be taking note of what's going on as you're driving and staying consistent with your specs. You should be logging data, you should have a tire pressure routine, basically do all of the boring repeatable preps so you're not blowing your shit up when it comes down to it. If you'd like to build an off-road vehicle, definitely avoid jumping straight into the cosmetic mods. A lot of people will just get a light bar and a winch, and this build won't see anything more intense than the curb of the Starbucks drive-thru. Off-roading is not about looking capable, it's about actually getting through all the bullshit that gets thrown at you in nature. Go with all terrains if you're gonna do some city driving and off-roading. Use mud tires for that really sloppy stuff, and rugged terrains for the kind of in-betweens. Go for proper sizes, decent sidewalls, correct pressure, anything but street tires in the mud. Recovery gear is also super important. This is where beginners usually mess up. If you're on your way out to some cool trails, you don't want to get stuck out there. Be sure to bring a tow strap, some traction boards, a winch, and a JBL. Don't forget the JBL because off-roading would suck without some music. Eventually, you will get stuck. The best piece of recovery gear is another person in another vehicle, so be sure to install the friend mod. When you're off-roading, you don't need the biggest, baddest lift kit. Getting sensible lift with some quality shocks and springs makes total sense though. Some people lift their shit way too high and it just looks goofy without actually changing the ground clearance. Underbody protection is also really nice to have when you're off-roading. Ideally, you'll be doing some cool shit like crawling over some rocks or something, and you don't want to be worrying about every time your undercarriage scrapes a rock. Installing a skid plate and other armor under there is totally worth it. It's better than putting a hole in your oil pan at least. Getting lockers and other traction aids is really good for off-roading. You could upgrade to something like a locking diff, or maybe even have a limited slip differential. At least something that's gonna get more than one wheel spinning. It's a huge upgrade for when the terrain gets real. An air compressor for changing your tire pressure on the go is surprisingly helpful. Lower tire pressure can improve grip and also just makes the ride a little bit more comfortable. Don't forget to air them back up before driving on the road with all the boring normal cars though. As far as lighting an off-road build, it's pretty similar to Rally for the front end, but you can also toss a bunch of cool lights on the sides and shit for the sake of it. Seeing is key when you're off-roading, but just please don't be the dude who uses these lights on a normal road. Holy shit, that pisses me off. If you've done everything right, you will naturally have a sick looking off-roading build without all the LARPing. You also now have a free pass to shoot TikToks at the gas pump with your rig. There are so many different ways to buy a car, and some of those ways will absolutely drain your bank account for no reason at all. Today, we're going over every single way to actually buy a car so you can finally score a good deal. Let's start with the most obvious one, the new dealership. Everyone watching has definitely driven past one of those massive parking lots packed with a bunch of brand new shiny cars. It looks so easy and so tempting, but trust me, dude, you're probably gonna want to steer clear. Let's say you just walk in looking for a base model Subaru Outback just as a daily driver. You'll be able to peacefully look around for a few minutes. But then, the most friendly person you will ever meet walks over to you. This is a car salesman, one of the most dangerous people at any dealership. The dude's name is most likely Mike. He has super white teeth, slick back hair, and a way of talking about cars that just makes you want to spend money. He'll tell you a bit about the Subaru Outback that you're looking at, but Mike knows that you truly want to get an $80,000 Trackhawk instead. He brings you over to the Trackhawk, showing off the Brembo brakes, telling you all about that supercharged V8, and you're basically sold. This is how people get stuck with cars that they definitely don't need. These salesmen know exactly what they're doing. When Mike brings you to his office to do some paperwork, what it really means is he's about to tank your credit score and put you into generational debt over a Trackhawk. Even though you can't buy the Trackhawk in cash, Mike is willing to put your 150 credit score to use. He cut you an awesome deal, so you only have to pay $500 a month for the rest of your life. While making this deal felt a little bit wrong at first, actually driving the Trackhawk made it all worth it. It's such a fun car for about a week. That V8 sounds really cool, but you can't bear hearing the drone for more than 20 minutes at a time. The size of the car is super comfortable, but getting 5 miles to the gallon just does not feel worth it. You bring the car back to the dealership to return it, and they're totally fine with that. You return the car, and they give you $20,000 in cash. Where in the world did the other 60 grand go? It turns out the moment your tires hit the public road, the car depreciated to the price of that Subaru Outback that you were looking at before. It's literally insane how steep the depreciation curve is. I feel like buying a car brand new only makes sense if you have like $1 million in cash minimum. If it were me, I'd much prefer driving a new, slightly used car to avoid the insane depreciation. Now that you've lost all this money, it's time to go check out something that fits with your tax bracket at the used dealership. The used dealership has a much different atmosphere than the last one. This place is a lot more laid back. The cars are all on a super dusty gravel parking lot. There's a huge inflatable tube man who's half broken, and a super loud neon sign that says,
Bad credit, no problem.
listen to me carefully. If Mike was a corporate shark, the sales dudes at this used dealership are demons. These cars look a lot less shiny. They're pretty beat up, they're all different brands and all different conditions, but there still seems to be a few good options for you. This is when the salesman walks out, Mark. Mark is a lot less put together than Mike, and he's a lot more happy to see you. You look around at some of the cars you could get for $20,000, and there are actually some decent daily drivers. You're still paying off that $60,000 loan from the other dealership, so something like a Honda Accord V6 will have to do for now. For some reason, this V6 Accord with 300,000 miles and a rebuilt title is being sold by Mark for around $10,000. To you, that seems like a reasonable price at first, until you look up the Kelley Blue Book estimate. This shit is a complete scam. I feel like used dealerships can be really hit or miss. Sometimes you can find awesome deals, but a lot of the time it's just a more expensive and slightly more trustworthy Facebook Marketplace. Which brings us to one of the most chaotic places on the entire internet. Facebook Marketplace is like the trenches of car purchasing. Marketplace is like a used dealership with street rules, and there's like a 50% chance you're gonna get robbed behind a Wendy's. But the law of equivalence is real. There are some of the most insane deals on this app. First, you need to know what to look for. If the seller is weird, then you have to give up on that car immediately. You're gonna run into 5 distinct types of people here. There's the grandparents, the fake grandparents, the high ballers, the low ballers, and finally the not so high credit score individuals. The grandparents are who you want to buy from most of the time, but never the people you want to sell to. Grandparents are usually completely out of touch with how much things cost these days. Back in their day, they could buy a beautiful chalet for 11 blueberries and a handshake. So the car that they're selling is most likely priced reasonably. The next best thing about buying cars from grandparents is that this thing has hardly been driven. The only miles on the car are probably to the library and back. The thing with grandparents is they most likely don't have a really cool car, right? Well, maybe they just don't know it. The Volvo V70R, for example, is the perfect Facebook Marketplace grandparent purchase. This car looks like a boring station wagon, and the grandparent owner probably thinks it's pretty boring too. They just don't know what kind of power that turbo inline 5 can make. You can find some of the cleanest low-mile Volvos for really good prices because of old people that just don't know what they have. The fake grandparents are what make things complicated though. You will most likely find fake grandparents on listings for unreliable cars. I've seen so many BMW 335i listings talking about
Grandma driven and grandma owned, garage kept.
and a whole lot of other bullshit, like Dude, I can literally see that the front end of the car is destroyed. The turbos are on fire. There is no way I'm gonna spend 12 grand on a blown up BMW 335i just because a grandma supposedly drove it. There is no way an actual grandma writes never redlined in their listing. Do grandparents even know what redlining a car is? I know there's a lot of car enthusiast grandparents, but whenever I read a listing like that, I just picture a 19-year-old street takeover member typing it out. Highballers are a lot like fake grandparents, except a lot less smart. Highballers will confidently list a broken down rolling shell Honda Civic for like $15,000. Talking about,
It ran when I parked it. The AC just needs a recharge. The knocking sound is just a loose plastic cover.
and a whole lot of other bullshit. It pisses me off when people try to scam you like this, but sometimes highballers just genuinely don't know about depreciation. The prices of some of those base model Mercedes listings is absurd. Dudes will actually list their 2014 C-Class for $45,000. Like, dude, this thing is completely stock besides the AutoZone interior. The description's something like,
No low balls, I know what I have. This is my beautiful C250, basically an AMG, with 170,000 miles.
Like, dude, just get off of Marketplace. I feel like actual expensive cars are usually listed for a reasonable price, but it's those high-mile base models that really screw with the Facebook economy. Why can't we go back to having $1,500 shitboxes all over Marketplace? A lot of people want to go back to this, which is what makes it difficult to sell stuff on Marketplace. Lowballers will absolutely ruin your confidence when you're trying to sell something. Even if you list your car for the low end of the Kelley Blue Book suggestion, best believe you're gonna have someone ask if you'd give it to them for free. The last time I tried listing a car for the reasonable price of $4,500, I had people asking me if I'd take $1,500 and an Arby's meat mountain. Fuck no, I'm not taking $3 grand off the price of my car, and there's no way I'm eating that shit. This is a whole other discussion, but how the fuck is Arby's still open? Anyway, lowballers are annoying and they can be pretty smart. They sometimes work together to gaslight the seller. It works like this. Some low-life lowballer sees a car they want for like $7,500. They'll have their friend text the seller and ask if they take $5 grand. Then they have their other friend text the seller to offer them $4,500. This is when the lowballer themselves swoops in and offers $6 grand. The seller now thinks that their car is a piece of shit and they end up taking a $1,500 loss on it because they got tricked into thinking the car is trash. Marketplace is not for the weak, because on top of all these people, you will most likely encounter a not so high credit score individual. These listings are the most tempting of them all, but also the most dangerous of them all. There are mixed experiences when it comes to listings like these, because sometimes you'll walk away with the deal of your life, and sometimes you'll walk away without your wallet. Have you ever seen those $300 listings for a Hellcat? Those are what I'm talking about. The listing most likely says something like,
If you know, don't ask for title.
there are two things you could do after reading this. You could either scroll past the listing, or you could try to get that $300 Hellcat. If you chose to go with the Hellcat, here are some likely outcomes. You text them about the listing, they plan on meeting you later that day, but first they want you to send them $50 as a holding fee. Losing $50 is one of the best outcomes, but you might also show up with cash in hand, and then it immediately gets taken out of your hand. Losing $300 also sucks, but it's still not the worst outcome. Let's say somehow you manage to secure the Hellcat for $300 and they give you a piece of paper that looks somewhat like a title. So after you get the Hellcat, you're gonna end up looking like a fool at the DMV when you say you bought the car for $300. That is, if you even make it to the DMV without getting arrested for possession of a stolen vehicle. Speaking of the DMV, something you should be careful with when buying a car on Marketplace is the price on the bill of sale. Sometimes people will say that they sold you the car for a lot less money so that you can avoid paying taxes on it. While this seems like a nice thing to do, the DMV is not gonna let you buy a G80 M3 for just $200. Some people on Marketplace will say that they're giving you the car as a gift on the bill of sale, but then that gift becomes taxable income, so you might lose even more money. Anyway, when it comes to buying and selling cars on Marketplace, just be careful and do your research. The project car delusion is something that usually comes after spending way too much time time on Facebook Marketplace. Once you get a solid car, a lot of people want something to work on for fun, but this is an extremely slippery slope. Marketplace has so many amazing project car options for a great price, but sometimes you need to take a step back and wonder why they're selling the car in the first place. I recently made a mistake like this. I found a 1975 BMW 2002 on Marketplace for just $1,500. If you know anything about 2002s, you know that this is an awesome price. I went to check it out and it looked nearly perfect. All of the interior parts were there was no rust on the shock mounts or on the subframe, and it looked like a really solid car. On top of all that, both of my daily drivers were in really good condition, so I had nothing to worry about. Anyway, I bought the car, I took the interior out, and holy shit, the entire floor had decomposed. There is no fucking floor in that car whatsoever. I was thinking, okay, that's fine, I'll just dial in my welding skills, I'll just get to work and fix it. Not even a day later, my other BMW's water pump failed. Not even 2 days later, my R53 Mini's fuel pump failed. It took me 4 days to have 3 broken cars under my name. Basically, I've learned my lesson. I'm only gonna own one unreliable car at a time, and I'm not gonna buy a project car until I have an actual solid daily. One of the best places to find awesome projects is at the auction. If you have ice in your veins and absolutely zero regard for your own financial well-being, go to the car auction. If you look past the reasons that some of these cars are at the auction, then there can actually be some decent deals. A brand new Hellcat starting at just $1,500? Awesome. A retired police cruiser with a bunch of holes in the windshield for just $200? Even better. These deals are impossible to pass up. They seem too good to be true, and they usually are. In high school, my friend got an E39 M5 at auction for $2,000. About a week later, I heard a school staff member on the intercom talking about,
"Whoever has the BMW that's leaking coolant in the parking lot needs to come to the office right now."
I think it's still collecting dust and leaking coolant in his yard to this day. That being said, he still got an M5 for just $2,000, so auction has its moments. A few good reasons that a car is at auction could be because a dealership took it as a trade-in and didn't want to sell it themselves. It could also be because of a lease return or just car rental companies getting rid of older cars. These are all great reasons. They could also just be there because they are total lost vehicles. These are where the awesome deals and horrible mistakes usually happen. You really can't know what you're getting into when you buy a car from an auction. Like, you will own and daily drive a car from an auction for like a year and then randomly find bullet casings in the door card or something. You just can't know. These cars have usually been run through, but it can be worth the risk. It might be less risky than importing a car though. So it turns out your country just doesn't quite have the right car for you. So it's time to look into importing. A lot of car enthusiasts dream of importing a car. It would be so cool to have a car that's really rare in your country. It's really funny because people in the UK will freak out whenever they see a Hellcat or something, even though it just seems like regular traffic to me. But then I'll freak out if I see an E91 335D in the US, or some other random European daily driver. The idea of importing is really cool, but holy moly, it's a pain. First, you need to actually find the car that you want to buy. The Toyota GR Yaris seems like a perfect choice. It's all-wheel drive, it makes around 300 horsepower, it looks super cool, and it's the perfect daily driver to import into the US. Oh wait, you can't. For some reason, Toyota decided not to certify it for the US market, mostly because the costs didn't make sense for the expected sales volume. Instead, we got a big old GR Corolla, which basically is the same thing but quite a bit heavier. Well, if you can't import a GR Yaris, what can you import? Whatever car you import has to meet the US safety standards, or at least be 25 years old. Meaning if you want to drive a GR Yaris, you're gonna have to export yourself to another country. Let's say you finally land on the perfect car that you can legally import into the US. It's a Suzuki Cappuccino. You set aside $7,000 to buy the car and get ready to press the import button. Unfortunately, it is not that straightforward. That $7,000 Cappuccino will quickly turn into a $12,000 Cappuccino. After emailing back and forth with a dude who only speaks Japanese and only replies at 3 a.m., you're gonna get smacked with some additional fees. But it's probably worth it, right? It's a really cool, tiny, turbo, rear-wheel drive car, and you need it. After you manage to order it, the dude tells you to send him $12,000, and the car will probably arrive sometime between next Tuesday and the heat death of the universe. The car arrives a few months later, and it's super fun. Unfortunately, the roof leaks a little bit. No big deal, right? You'll just order some new seals online. Oh wait, you're gonna need to wait another another 6 months to get them because they're only made now and then in one single factory in Japan. Importing cars is really cool, but it can also really be a pain in the ass. Maybe cars that can't come to the US are actually better, or maybe the grass is just greener on the other side. Who knows? Most first car videos will tell you to buy a boring ass car that you would probably hate. But today I'm gonna put you on game by giving you 20 cheap, reliable, and fast cars that you might not even know about. I know this one seems pretty basic, but the V6 Honda Accords are actually pretty badass. It's like a Civic the long way, and reasonably quick from the factory. If you find one of these with a J35 engine, they can have somewhere between 240 and 280 horsepower stock. And it's Honda, so you can just bang the limiter all day. This thing is great for a first car, but if you want basically the same thing but a little sportier, you could go for the Acura TL Type S. I mean, just look at this thing. It's so clean and also comes with the J35. Although these cars are both front-wheel drive, the Acura comes with a limited slip differential, which is pretty badass for a first car if you ask me. If you're not looking for a cushy sedan and need something a bit more raw and adventurous, look no further than the Subaru Forester XT. I love the Subaru Forester XT. I think they can look slightly goofy, but otherwise it's a great choice for a first car. They come with a turbo 4-banger and can come with a manual transmission. Best of all, you get Subaru's all-wheel drive, which is really fun for the winter. These cars aren't the fastest by any means, but when done right, they can look super clean, drive nicely, and handle a lot of rally style stuff. Best of all, they're super cheap. I feel like this is one of the best options if you live in a place with kind of rough weather, or lots of dirt roads at least. These things can be built into awesome adventure cars, or you could just let your 1.8 GPA take over and slam it. If you'd rather stay on the asphalt and have a car that pulls really hard for no reason at all, then let me put you on the Ford Taurus SHO. I wasn't even aware of these cars until recently, but it quickly became one of my favorite cheap, fast, and reliable options. It's a little faster than cheap or reliable, but still an awesome option. It's like the faster and slightly more expensive version of the Accord V6. These things are absolute sleepers. They come with Ford's EcoBoost engines and make around 365 horsepower from the factory. Like, this thing does not look like it would pull like that. I think the only reason they're not too popular is because people don't love these engines. Even though they're pretty cool twin turbo V6s, I guess Ford decided to put the water pump in a pretty awkward spot, and a failure might leave you in generational debt. That being said, they look clean, they're super spacious, and no one would expect these things to make so much power. They're all-wheel drive, which is nice too. But just like the Accord, they're pretty fat sedans, which can be nice for a daily commute, but not really ideal for canyon carving. If you're looking for a more driver-focused car, like speed in the corners type of car, then let me put you on the FRS, BRZ, and GR86. There's a good reason 3 different companies produce the exact same car, because they're pretty awesome. These cars are somewhat cheap, reliable, and super well balanced, but they are about as slow as shit. Like, these cars are awesome, but actually so slow. If you enjoy speed through the corners, then one of these cars is definitely the option for you. I think they look really nice too. If you're ready to get into a pretty huge project, then making one of these cars fast would make it a perfect sport daily. If you like the idea of a nicely balanced chassis, but you don't really like the look or size of these things, then maybe you should consider a Honda Civic Si. The Civic Si is a classic. These cars are like Honda's M Lights. You can find some really good deals on the 8th gen Civic Si, and they're pretty fun cars considering the price and reliability. These engines can rev really high, and they come with a 6-speed manual transmission, so you can just row through gears on the back roads. Trust me, dude, you can't even blow this shit up if you try. I don't know what Honda was smoking, but this is definitely made out of netherite or something. These cars have tons of aftermarket support because it's a Civic, so you're not going to be spending hours on a 15-year-old forum trying to find cool stuff to put on it. These things aren't anything crazy, to be honest, but it's a really good option for a solid sporty daily. If you really don't like front-wheel drive because your ego just can't handle it or something, maybe you should try to find a good deal on a 2.5 RS. Are you interested in driving an X Rally Champion, a car with an engine that just won't blow up, with a manual transmission and 50-50 split all-wheel drive? Me too, and I have before. These things are awesome. They're not going to gap anything faster than a stock Honda Odyssey, but these cars just feel so nice to drive. If you take this thing up a gravel road, you'll understand why this car was a rally champion back in the day. And I think they have one of the best looking front ends from Subaru. Like, the car just looks so mean. These cars are becoming hard to come by for a reasonable price though, unfortunately. If you find a good deal, it's an awesome pick. But if you're in a pinch and you can't wait around for some grandpa to sell their 2.5 RS for a good price, then the Mazda Speed 3 might be a good option for you. There's absolutely no shortage of these cars, and and you can find them for a very good price very fast. I never thought too much of the Mazda Speed 3, but then my friend let me drive his, and these things are no joke for the price. They're pretty reliable, cheap up front, and super fast for what it is. They come with over 260 horsepower stock, but can easily be flash tuned to make over 300. They can actually start making some pretty dumb power if you're interested in doing an intake, downpipe, intercooler, and all that other junk. Other than it being front wheel drive, they're super fun. I feel like you usually see annoying people driving these cars, but if you can somehow come across as chill while driving one of these, it's an awesome choice. If you really just can't get past the front wheel drive, then luckily you can get the exact same car with all wheel drive. I mean, it's a little bit different and slightly more expensive and slightly harder to come by, but the Mazda Speed 6 is kind of perfect. If you can get one of these as a first car, you're gonna be a very happy person. They have the exact same engines, nice all-wheel drive, and can also be found with manual transmission. This car seems like a pretty sweet daily, but if you'd like the same thing for cheaper and with a nicer sounding exhaust note, definitely consider the Volvo V70R or S60R. I don't even know if I want to put you guys on this one because I might want to buy one before I artificially inflate the market by accident. Volvo decided to produce such a badass car for absolutely no reason at all. They made the S60R, which is a sedan, and the V70R, which is a wagon. These cars are the same otherwise. They come with 300 horsepower stock, powered by a turbo 5-cylinder engine, making one of the most unique and badass exhaust notes that you will ever hear. On top of all that, they can come with a manual transmission with this super weird spaceball shift knob, but I kind of f with it. These things are absolutely overbuilt as well. There is stitched leather everywhere, even in the bottom of the door cards. They also have really cool adjustable suspension, and there are these 3 buttons in the middle of the dash that say Comfort, Sport, and Advanced. You can simply click the drive mode you want to be in, and it'll adjust the suspension. If you get an automatic, it'll also change the transmission timing, which is pretty cool. These things have tons of room for hauling friends around and plenty of power for some fun pulls. Okay, now time for some drawbacks. They have a really wide wheelbase, which makes these things kind of feel like land yachts a little bit. I've heard they have pretty loose steering as well, and they're pretty heavy. It's not gonna beat a 3 Series in the corners by any means, but as a sporty daily with plenty of power, it's an awesome option. Also, they have slightly rough aftermarket support, being kind of niche and stuff. Another great thing about these is that it's usually old people selling them who never got to drive them too hard. And they also just think it's an old Volvo, so you can sometimes come across them for a pretty good deal. I would personally pick this car over the Accord V6 or the Taurus SHO. All these cars are a bit niche though, so you might not find as much aftermarket support as you would with an Infiniti G37. The G37 pisses me off though. I understand the hype, I guess. They make good power, they're reliable, and as long as you don't make it look or sound like a trumpet, then they're pretty cool too. I still don't like them, but I just can't say they're bad cars, unfortunately. VQ engines are good, and their chassis is very well balanced for a sedan, and when done right, they can look really nice. If you'd like to see one of these cars in person before buying one, just go to any 4-way intersection at 3 a.m. Just like the last few cars I talked about, these things are pretty big sedans, so I think now is a good time to mention the RX-8. The Mazda RX-8 is a funny one to me. I think they're kind of goofy looking, at least when people put fangs on them, and unfortunately, they're not amazing cars. So why am I mentioning them at all? They're super unique and really cool for a first car. These cars have extremely rev-happy engines, and the car handles incredibly well. And it's a 4-door sports sedan since it has those weird half doors at the back. While this car does have a pretty cheap entry price for what it is, these rotary engines are not very reliable. It's a very good first sports car, but maybe not a very good first car. I think something more fitting as a first car and as a first sports car would be a BMW E46. If you can find an E46 330 Ci for a reasonable price, then definitely go for it. Otherwise, any other E46 is pretty cool too. Every engine to ever come in an E46 has been pretty bulletproof besides the cooling system in some of them. These cars look awesome and are so well balanced. The E46 is a lot of people's favorite generation M3, and the greatness of that M3 trickles down into the base models, especially the 330 Ci. They feel super raw to drive, and the engines are pretty straightforward to work on. And these things can be stupidly cheap. Also, the aftermarket support for these cars is insane. They're not the fastest cars, but far from slow, and have a lot of potential to make good power. If you like BMW, but just want something slightly newer for some reason, try going for an E92 328i. For me, this one is pretty close to the E46 330 Ci. It's super nice. You might wonder why I'm suggesting a 328 over a 335 when they cost about the same up front. It's because the N52 can absolutely rip reliably, while the 335 would put a hole in the turbo and your wallet. As long as you find this car with any transmission other than the GM, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Ideally manual, of course. The N52 is probably the best non-M M naturally aspirated straight six that BMW has made. It's annoying because it's really plasticky and doesn't have a dipstick, but it's just such a good engine otherwise. It's kind of hard to build power with these things, but people are starting to realize how great these engines are, so the aftermarket support is getting a lot better. I don't mean to say the N54 is terrible by any means. If you can find a clean 335 with low miles and driven by an older person, you're good to go. Like 300 horsepower stock, and then stupid power with pretty basic mods. If you go with a 335, be sure to upgrade from the stock turbos. The E92 is really well balanced and can look super nice as well. Basically any other chassis from that generation is great too, but they can either be really heavy or really cramped. And that's why I think the E92 is a good sweet spot. It's important to mention that it's basically required to do your own maintenance with any BMW. If you go to a mechanic instead, be prepared to pay the BMW tax on literally everything. If these cars aren't in your budget but you like the German engineering, maybe consider a Volkswagen Golf GTI. You can find a Mark V GTI for a really reasonable price, and these things are freaking sweet. They come with a turbo 4-cylinder engine, which makes decent power, and they come with a 6-speed manual. There's a really good reason that everyone buys these things. It's because they're awesome. They're a little small, but a good size for a daily, and they're not like Mini Cooper small or anything, but maybe not as big as the Mazda Speed 3. Anyway, it's a very solid choice for a first car. I know some people are still pissed about all those turbo 4-cylinder engines and front-wheel drive, so maybe you guys need to look into the IS300. Do you want a 2JZ? Are you as broke as shit? This is basically the only option for you. These cars are pretty badass, they look nice, and they have 2Js. Alright, hop off Marketplace, bud. These are the NA 2Js, which are still pretty cool, but not the ones with all the hype. The first gen IS300 is a solid choice for a first car because it's got that Toyota reliability, Lexus comfort, and they're reasonably cheap. They're not the most fun cars to drive compared to the other things on this list, but they're super good, comfortable daily drivers. Sometimes you can find these things with a 5-speed manual, but you're most likely going to find an auto since Lexus just likes to be annoying for the sake of it. I've talked a lot about coupes and sedans, but maybe some of you just want a crazy first car shout for hauling friends around. Have you considered the Honda Odyssey? I'm dead ass. Minivans are awesome first cars, and the Honda Odyssey is one of the better ones. This one is definitely cheap and super reliable. While it isn't fast at all, you would make up for it by tossing two 12-inch Sundowns in the trunk and comfortably hauling all of your friends around. Maybe even put a Starlight headliner up. If you want to be an idiot, you could probably boost this thing reasonably reliably, and the whole build would still cost less than basically anything else on this list. If you make this thing fast and drive it in a straight line, then it would actually be pretty cool. Enough fooling around though, I need to mention the E36 at least once. It wouldn't be a good video without it. The BMW E36 is very similar to the other two BMWs that I put on this list, but I think it's one of the nicer looking ones. They also have an insanely well-balanced chassis and can be built up into any type of car you want them to be. Lots of people drift these cars, so if that's something you might want to get into, it's a really good option. It's kind of hard to find these in reasonable condition, but if you do, get that thing, dude. Actually, if you're gonna drift one of these, please get a shit one. Don't ruin another good looking E36. I'm putting this one in with the other two BMWs because I think it's the most raw out of the three. If you want a raw sport daily, go with the E36. These cars handle incredibly well, but definitely not as well as the Honda Fit. If you're looking for a car that you could actually bring to the track every day and not break, get one of these. The Honda Fit is completely glued to the ground. I don't even know how they did it. Actually, I do. Honda just decided to put the engine and transmission stupidly low on this car, which made it able to corner insanely well. Also, the short wheelbase helps with the handling too. They aren't the most beautiful looking cars, but everyone loves these things. If you go to any track ever, there's definitely gonna be a Honda Fit somewhere in the front. They're dirt cheap, dumb reliable, and dirt fast. Yeah, they're really not that fast in a straight line, but the speed will carry through the corner. They're kind of small though, and not boosted from the factory, unlike the Saab 9.3 Aero. The Saab 9.3 Aero is reasonably cheap and really cool. They're not that popular, so you can actually get some good grandma deals on these things. And better yet, they're powered off a turbo 4-banger. They look a little bit goofy, but also not really. Like, they look goofy in a badass way, in my opinion. Also, you get niche points for driving one of these because Saab doesn't even exist anymore, which also means the aftermarket support is a little bit rough, but it's not terrible by any means. Anyway, I think it's time to drop my final drip of sports car ball knowledge. the Eclipse GST. You can actually find some of these for a reasonable price, but they're almost always going to be run through a little bit. I'd be willing to pay that price for a cool car though. They look awesome, they're pretty quick, and it's like Fast and Furious. Awesome. These cars are super well balanced, they look great and sound cool. They're just a really solid sporty option in my opinion. They're pretty small cars for a daily driver, but still a great option. From Japan's Supras and Germany's BMWs to India's... Which country actually has the best cars? Italy. Yeah, Ferrari, Lamborghini, blah blah. F off, it's Fiat time. The Italian Mini Cooper. It's slow as crud, unless we're talking about corners. That's where these bad boys shine. The Fiat 500 is ugly as slow as but can take a turn like it's on rails. So yeah, obviously Fiat isn't the best brand from Italy. We've got Ferrari, of course, making bangers like the F40, the 250 GTO, the 812 Superfast, and just way too many other cars to list. But I'm not gonna give them the crown just yet because we can't forget about Pagani. I also can't forget about Alfa Romeo with the Italian BMWs. This country is a tough one. I'm gonna give it to Ferrari, even though they're an asshole brand for not letting people modify their cars. Still think they're the best cars that Italy has made. Canada's cars suck. I'm gonna give the best brand award to this thing because of the T-Rex. It's time for some freedom! The USA produces the most badass eagle-screeching, gun-shooting, gas-guzzling cars of all time. I'm not talking about the Cybertruck though. And dude, the US knows ball. Like the Cadillac CTS-V wagon? That shit's dope! Also, the 2005 Ford GT was an instant American classic. The Dodge Viper scares me, and Corvettes are pure badassery. Honestly, I didn't used to love Corvettes, but then I helped my friend work on a C4 and it made me understand the hype. Those cars are pretty freaking raw and sendy. Why the hell do American cars make you sit so far back though? When I sit in one, I feel like I could roll the window down and touch the back wheel. Maybe that's why they have such a bad reputation for handling, but a really good reputation for looking fucking awesome. Hell yeah, brother. I personally think the American car brand battle is between Ford and Chevy. That's coming from a non-American car enthusiast, so take that with a grain of... To ease your mind, I'll give the crown to Ford for now because the Raptor R is dope and the old F-250s are really cool, and the 3rd generation Ford Ranger.
Now let's focus on Europe for a little bit, since they got some crazy shit you might not know about.
Turkey dropped the TOG T10X, which looks super boring to me and has a terrible interior, but I just really like saying TOG. So that's definitely a point. What the f is an Andal Bokek? The United Kingdom. While they do have some interesting food choices and design choices when it comes to cars, the UK definitely has dropped some heat. When I say interesting design choices, I'm just talking about any car from Reliant and the City Rover. Yuck! Okay, that being said, the UK dropped McLaren, Aston Martin, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Lotus, and like a shit ton of other bangers. Rolls-Royce has the Phantom, of course, which is just peak luxury. And the Aston Martin with the DBS Superleggera. I love the brap noise that these things make. Jaguar dropped the Shaguar, which is Austin Powers' daily. I'm kidding, the Jaguar F-Type R is a mega Jag win. And Lotus made the Fox body, Carlton, which looks freaking cool. And oh yeah, the McLaren F1. Okay, out of these, the best brand from the UK is going to Mini. Germany. Germany. What a great country. The nature, the beer, the pretzels, it's all amazing. But all of those beautiful things mean absolutely nothing compared to their cars. And holy shit, these Germans can drive them however fast they want. It's just so unfair. So what are Germany's best cars? The Mercedes 190e is such a beautiful car. Mercedes actually crafted the most exquisite looking car when they made the 190e. Just look at this thing, right? As a BMW glazer, I think these things look nicer than E30s. Also, fun fact about the 190e, some trims had self-leveling rear suspension, so that's just badass, I guess. This is gonna sound like an absolute generic cornball opinion, but the Porsche 911 GT3 RS is such a good car from Germany. I can't help but give it a spot in the top 3 best cars from Germany. You already know all about it since it's so popular, so I'll move on to my next pick. Okay, this one might come as a bit of a shock to you. No, I'm just messing with you. It's the BMW E46 M3. Beautiful looking car, raw driving experience, and such a cool engine. 333 horsepower from that straight 6 probably feels so good to drive. drive. Guys, can you please spare a buck so I can get one of these, please? I'm gonna give Germany's best brand to Porsche. Porsche knows how to make some good damn cars.
Bonus round.
Brazil. Brazil also has a super cool and weird car community. They have so many front wheel drive cars that most people lift the back for better traction. I think it's cool that they have such a strong underground car community, even though they're kind of set back by having so many front wheel drive cars. That being said, I think the best cars that this country has ever produced are all rear wheel drive. The Chevrolet Opala SS. This thing just looks like any other American muscle car, but it's Brazilian. So I guess that's cool. The Volkswagen SP2 is way too cool looking. I really like the stance and the headlights. Chevy made the Puma GTB in Brazil, which is also awesome looking. I think it again looks like any other American muscle car, but with a little bit of Brazilian swaz. I'm gonna give Volkswagen the best brand award for Brazil. France. Oh, bonjour, je m'appelle Gassi. Yeah, the French don't really have Jacques shit to offer. I'm kidding, they made Bugatti. I've talked a lot about Bugattis in my best of every cylinder video because as you probably know, these cars have insane engines and they look bad freaking ass too. Also, Peugeot is super cool. They made some of the best hot hatches like the 205 GTI. Looks just like a French VW in my opinion and packs a pretty solid punch. And you cannot forget about Alpine. The A110 looks so mean. I don't know what to think of the fog lights on the newer models, but they look badass on the old one. They don't make dumb power, but they're such light cars that you don't really need all that. France, the best car from your country is not Renault, even though Renault made the Clio V6. They just fucked up so badly with the Avantime that I'm not even gonna consider them the best car brand. It's gonna be Bugatti, right? I don't know who else it would go to. Sweden! Yes! It's time for some beautiful brands to be mentioned. Whenever I think of hooning around in the snow, I think of Swedish cars. To all the Subaru dudes, spare your comment, I know you exist too. But anyway, these Swedish people know how to make some super safe and super cool looking cars. Although they up the Saab 7-9X, Saab also made some sweet cars. The 900 Turbo, for example, was a sweet ride. But Saab, I can't give you guys a crown sadly. If your cars were that good, then maybe they'd still exist. But I'll toss you guys a participation award for that Aero wagon. Volvo can have my children. Volvo is just such a cool brand and they make a shit ton of cool cars. The 850R, the V70R, the S60R, and of course all the variations of the 240. Volvo just knows how to do it. But what do you think? Is Volvo above Koenigsegg? Dude, the Koenigsegg Agera RS is just like, what the fuck were these Swedish dudes snorting? Adderall? Fentanyl? Yeah, this shit is just like peak. If you've got one of these, you might as well just drive it for a bit, then die. You finish a campaign. Obviously, Koenigsegg makes faster, cooler, and more expensive cars, but that's not a good reason to put it above Volvo in my opinion. I'm gonna toss Volvo the crown for Sweden, but feel free to argue with me in the comments because I don't know how nicely that decision sits with me.
Wow, we've been through a lot of major countries already, but we still haven't even touched on places like Japan or Egypt. Wait, what cars does Egypt even make?
Egypt. Yikes.
Wow, that was ass. Subscribe so you don't have to drive that car, twin.
Australia. Australia has some of the most weird and interesting car communities out of all of these countries, and it's awesome. Have you seen those burnout competitions? Ford Australia used to make the Ford Barra engine, which is basically an Australian 2J, and it is awesome. You can find this engine on some of the Ford Falcons and some variations of the Ford Territory. That's definitely a point for Ford. The Holden GTS makes way more power than it should, and the Holden Monaro CV8 looks so nice. Ah! The Proton Jumbuck sucks, so Proton definitely isn't getting the crown. Between Holden and Ford, I'm gonna give it to Holden just because I like the look of the CV8. Oh shit, but I also like the sound of the Barra engines. Maybe I'll just give the win to Ford because of the Capri Turbo being badass, so it's gonna go to Ford again. India. Well, these cars are definitely something, like the Riva G-Wiz. These dudes actually named a fucking car G-Wiz. Well, anyway, there's a few Indian bangers at least. Tata makes some cool cars like the Tata Safari. Looks kind of like a Land Cruiser in my opinion, so that's gonna give Tata the crown for Indian. Let me know if India made a better car than the Tata Safari because that's the coolest one in my opinion.
Now let's see what Asia has going on.
Vietnam. Unfortunately, Vietnam doesn't really have anything cool as far as cars go. A company called VinFast basically dominates the market, so I'll give them the crown. Japan. Japan is historically the most badass country as far as cars go, according to me. You know that one dude, Smokey something? That dude is so badass.
Man, I'm finna whip this hoe.
and all those other guys too. Japan has produced some insane cars like the Toyota Supra, the R34 Skyline, the Honda NSX. Japan is pretty hard to beat. But you know what else is hard to beat? Making a car shittier than the Mitsubishi Mirage. This thing definitely docks a point from Japan. Luckily, Mitsubishi is cool otherwise. They made the Lancer Evo, the Eclipse, and some other fire shark. They made Subaru, which is cool, Toyota, which is a classic, Lexus, which is just Toyota but cooler, Mazda, Honda, Acura, Sushi, Nissan, Infiniti, mini trucks. One day I will own enough property to drive a mini truck on it and haul my mini bike on the mini truck. I love Japan. I'm gonna have to give the best brand from Japan to Toyota. Malaysia, the Proton Satria GTI is so sweet looking. The front lip, the headlights, the hatchbackness, the dual exhaust. This thing looks sweet, and people mod the shit out of these cars. The Bufori Geneva is exactly the car I would drive if I became an evil villain. Peruta makes cars so boring that I'm gonna give Proton the #1 spot because of the Satria GTI. China makes some weird cars. The Landwind X7 is just a Range Rover clone. It's such a weird car. A Chinese company called NIO makes a cool futuristic looking car called the EP9. I like the way it looks on the outside since it's just so over the top, but I don't like the interior at all. There's no reason to have all those screens. The BYD Seal looks boring as shit, and the Xpeng P7 also looks boring as shit. So I guess the winner by default is NIO. Indonesia. I messed with the Datsun Terrace, but otherwise I'm not interested in Indonesia's cars. So South Korea. The Kia boys would be nothing without South Korea. South Korea makes the absolute best NPC cars ever. Kias, Hyundais, and I guess Genesis is cool even though it's still a Hyundai. South Korea is trying to dig themselves out of their car history by dropping the Kia Stinger and the Hyundai N thingy. These cars are an upgrade from the horseshit cars that South Korea has dropped in the past, I suppose, but they're still not fantastic in my opinion. But more on the Genesis. I feel like this brand is the biggest step forward for South Korea because the Genesis G70, for example, comes with that turbo V6 making 365 horsepower, which is 1 horsepower for every day of the year. And I personally think the design looks nice. This is a reasonable attempt at making a car to compete with a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4 or something. And then they made the G80, which is a bit bigger and kind of competes with a 5 Series or an A6. Even though it's a new brand, I'm gonna give Genesis the crown for South Korea at the moment. I don't like the fucking Kia Soul. Mexico. The Vool 05 from Mexico is sweet. It looks like a car that you could only drive with your best friend because it's so tiny and the dudes look so funny sitting in it. The Mistretta MXT has such a cool looking interior and also looks like an Audi TT mixed with a 350Z and then swazzed up a little bit. I don't like the Zakua MX3 EV at all. I might even say I hate it. Vool is definitely the winner of Mexico. The United Arab Emirates. Holy fuck. These dudes are rich. Have you ever seen the W Motors Lykan Hypersport? This thing actually looks like a transformer. This country is just a GTA 5 lobby. What the fuck is the Devil 16? You want a little bit of car with that exhaust? I can't forget about the Zaruk Sand Racer either. I didn't even know cars like this existed outside of Hot Wheels. Also, they just gold-plated a G-Wagon for the sake of it. I'm sure that amount of spending freedom is pretty nice. The Generelli Design 1 is another funny buddy car, but also badass. Out of all these cars from the United GTA 5 lobby, I've gotta give the win to the Devil, right? I mean, all of these cars are just so insane that I don't even know how to put one above the other. I probably don't even have to say this, but correct my opinion in the comments. Saudi Arabia. The Toyota Land Cruiser 300 from Saudi Arabia is cool. It looks like it could get over a lot of stuff. Also, the Isuzu D-Max Desert. This thing looks so badass. I love this thing. It kind of looks like it has a truck bed just for the sake of it. It's such a small truck bed that you couldn't fit anything in there, but you wouldn't want anything in there if you're jumping over sand dunes anyway. These are all huge cars. I guess they don't have to worry about gas prices. So I'll give Isuzu the winner for the D-Max because that thing looks awesome.
Next up is Africa and Loki. I didn't know they were cooking twin.
Kenya, starting off so strong with the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. I just love everything about it. Can you imagine pulling up to your bud's house in this shit? The Mobius 2 looks like a plastic G-Wagon, but I kind of like it. I don't know. I imagine it'd be practical in Kenya somehow. The Volkswagen Polo Vivo is locally built and looks like regular traffic, but has a little bit of potential, I guess. I'll give it to Toyota for the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. Morocco. Laraki wins Morocco. No argument needed. So I guess Nigeria knows a little bit of ball knowledge. They made this knockoff G-Wagon, which looks pretty cool in my opinion, and then the Puget 504, which is also cool looking. None of the other cars that Nigeria has made interest me in the slightest, so I'm gonna just say the knockoff G-Wagon brand is my favorite from Nigeria. South Africa. South Africa has some cool ones. We got the Piranha with the Z1. I think this thing looks pretty sweet. If you think this thing is ugly, you at least have to agree that this thing looks super aerodynamic. I really like the Ford Sierra XR8. Although it looks a little bit cross-eyed, it's got a very cool looking chassis and can be built up to look sweet. South Africa also produced a super nice and pretty rare BMW, the BMW 333i, which was only made between 1985 and 1986. It's just an E30 with an E28 engine, and it's kind of like the first BMW M Lite. If you want the M performance but not the M price tag, then you should go with the 333i. I like it. I'll give BMW the crown for South Africa. I think Sweden, Japan, and the UK have the coolest cars in the world. Let me know what you think in the comments though. Cars make noise all the time, so sometimes it's hard to tell which noises are good and which noises are bad. These car noises get more and more expensive as the list goes on, so be sure to watch to the end. Number 1, light squeak while braking. You do not have carbon ceramic brakes. Your is just worn out. Go grab some brake pads and probably do the rotors while you're at it too. Not too hard of a job and your car will stop. Nice. Number 2, ticking engine. Lower your cortisol immediately. This one also isn't that bad, unlike the next one. You either have lifter tick, which just means you should go for a spirited drive, or maybe you need to top off your oil. Usually not a huge deal at all. Number 3, whining while accelerating. This one is not for the Hellcat drivers. You guys are fine. For everyone who doesn't have a supercharged car, you might want to worry about the whining just a tad. There are a few things that could be going on. First, you're broke and use a Bluetooth adapter. Second, it could be the transmission, because when these things need a fluid change, they'll let you know. But if it's making a whining noise, then you'll probably feel the other issues like slipping or delayed shifts and stuff. It could also be a belt. Be sure your power steering, alternator belt, and all the other ones aren't wearing out, because if they are, they'll kind of scream at you a bit and sound like a supercharger. If you want to ignore this, no worries. At least your car sounds like it's supercharged. Number 4, clicking while turning. Unless you're driving on a keyboard over the Logitech G29, you don't want to hear clicking while turning at all. I hate to be the one to break the news, but your CV joints might be cooked, especially if you're driving a front-wheel drive car or an all-wheel drive car. If your CV axle fails, then that sucks, man. I don't know what to say. So basically, be sure to check on the CV joints if you feel or hear a clicking noise while turning, or simply turn up the music and ignore the problem until it solves itself. This is my personal favorite option. Number 5, low humming at high speeds. You might want to sit down for this one. If your wheel bearing needs to be replaced, you're completely fried, dude. Not because it's insanely expensive or anything, but it's just such a pain in the ass to replace a wheel bearing. Holy shit. I pray the low humming you're hearing is just an exhaust leak or something. Like, this isn't insane by any means, especially if you're a seasoned mechanic, but it's just one of those things that sucks to do, you know? Like, if I'm gonna go out of my way to do all that and spend all that money, I'd at least want the car to be faster. But alas, sometimes you just need to make a wheel spin, I guess. That's a part of being a car guy. Number 6, rattling from under the car. This usually isn't detrimental at all, and usually it just means you're a shitty welder. If you hear a rattling noise under the car, it's most likely just a loose heat shield or maybe a worn out exhaust clamp or something. This issue is one of the less expensive ones, especially compared to the next, but it's still annoying nonetheless. I've had to deal with a rattling exhaust a lot. My car has 2 pipes that run parallel, and when I was modifying the exhaust, I accidentally made them go a bit too close to each other. That's how a few days of laying under the car started. I still feel the slag from the welder weighing down my lungs. Number 7, grinding brakes. You absolutely can't even play this one off as carbon ceramic brakes. Your shit is just at this point. Your brake pads are dust. What to do next? Get some new brake pads. Get some rotors as well and a fake hood scoop from aisle 5. If you drive on grinding brakes, you'd better say a prayer before you plan on stopping, especially if they were squeaking and then grinding. You're cooked. I feel like grinding brakes sound like that one Tombstone moving sound effect. Number 8, loud exhaust. Hear me out. If you want a loud exhaust, you absolutely have my permission. If you didn't do anything to your exhaust and it's loud, one of the following things may have happened. Option 1, your catalytic converters are gone and some dude named Owen has them laying in his trunk next to a cordless Sawzall. Option 2, maybe you drove over a rock or something that put a hole in your muffler. Not a huge deal, but it might sound like. Or option 3, you have an exhaust leak. Although there's an off chance that maybe your exhaust leak sounds good, that shit is definitely exhausting straight into the cabin air intake. If you're at a red light for too long and you have an exhaust leak, you're definitely gonna get faded. Not only is it bad for you to breathe exhaust, but also your car is just gonna deter the huzz, dude. You need to get that shit fixed immediately. And no, I'm not talking about lathering JB Weld on the hole or even using exhaust wrap. You just need a good old-fashioned welder. Just get the cheapest one at Harbor Freight and you'll be fine. Number 9, bouncing car syndrome. If your car feels like it's jumping when you go over a bump or any bullshit like that, you're definitely riding entirely on springs, dude. While it is doable, it just sucks. Don't expect to do any canyon carving with cooked springs either. It's gonna feel like you're driving a land yacht. It's surprising how much of a difference nice shocks make. And while you're doing all that work down there, you might as well pick up a nice set of lowering springs or even upgrade to some coilovers. It makes it a lot more fun to drive the car. If you're just concerned about comfort though, just do the shocks. Number 10, hissing after you park. This one is just absolutely cooked. You probably have a coolant or vacuum leak. If it's a vacuum leak, you should probably just look at your idle to see if it's seeking at all, meaning the RPMs go up and down until it settles. It's easiest to find a vacuum leak with a smoke machine and just pump smoke into the air intake and look for leaks behind the MAF sensor. I made a smoke machine with a pickle jar, a sock, Diddy oil, and a bike pump. Let me know if you want to hear more about that because it actually worked. Number 11, clunk while shifting. This one just sucks, but it also opens up some fun opportunities. There's a pretty solid chance that your transmission needs some work, depending on the clunk severity, of course. Let's just say your transmission turned into metal glitter. Maybe it's a good time to swap to a DTC or even something more fun like a ZF 6-speed. I don't even know. Just swap a cool transmission in there and have fun. Number 12, high-pitched belt squeal.
Belt.
Number 13, exhaust popping. This one most likely doesn't apply to the BMW owners. A lot of people like pops and bangs and burbles, but dude, this one can actually be pretty bad if it's not intentional. Basically, your engine's timing is slow, so there's a bit of gas left over and it explodes, which makes that awesome noise that all the BMW kids love. If your car isn't tuned to do this or you don't have a modified exhaust, you should probably get it checked out. Number 14, knocking noise coming from the engine. I pray this isn't actually rod knock, but if it is, here's what to do first. Sign up for therapy, say it was really, really bad, and then walk to the liquor store. If your engine is knocking, you're most likely you'll have to rebuild or swap that bad boy. Maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe you can swap the engine with something better. I'm just trying to see the bright side of things though. This is just a terrible situation. Number 15, sudden loud bang. Same type of noise as when the universe was created or whatever. Hearing a sudden loud bang from the engine bay is far from ideal. It's probably just bad timing and like an engine backfire, but it could also just be like a belt snap or a blown radiator hose, a motor mount. It could be any of those things that just broke randomly. I'm not really an expert on random explosions though. Number 16, 15,000 RPM. This one's for the manual drivers. If you're showing off your quick shifting, pushing your car to its absolute limits, sometimes you can accidentally money shift from red line in third gear to purple line in second. If you actually money shift really badly, your can just explode on the spot. I'm talking like a chunk out of the engine block. You are absolutely cooked. If you do this to your car by accident, it's most likely gonna break. Chances are you're gonna need a new transmission too. I think the most profitable way to go about this is just begging the junkyard to take this car for at least $5. Number 17, rapid clicking while starting. This is probably the starter solenoid or starter motor. This isn't that bad, but it's really annoying. Replacing a starter can also be a pain in the ass depending on the car and the type of work area you have. It's not too expensive though, and your car isn't ruined. It just won't start for you. A grinding noise while trying trying to start is pretty similar, but it just means the little gear on the starter is worn out, not catching where it's supposed to. Fix your crap, twin. Number 18, extremely loud wind noise while driving. So from my professional diagnosis, you either need to roll up your windows or you don't have a windshield. Be sure to keep your mouth shut for the flies and put on your safety squints. Number 19, siren noises behind car while driving. For some reason, this noise only appears after you commit a traffic violation, but it's usually just safe to ignore it. Just drive faster, turn up the music, and it should eventually go away. Number 20, the worst noise of all, silence. If your car doesn't do at all, I don't even know what to say. Just check all the other basics. If it doesn't do at all, probably just bring it to LS Customs and they'll get it sorted. Silence is the absolute most scary thing that can happen to your car, and I pray it doesn't happen to you. Wheels, possibly the first human invention ever, and yet we still use them in our day-to-day lives. I think that's why people underestimate the beauty of good wheels and tires, because how can the first ever invention be any better than it was 1,000 years ago? Wheels and tires are very easy components to neglect if you don't understand the importance of them, because on the surface level, they seem to all do the same thing. Roll. And for the most part, you're right. You could drive on Steelies across the country, but for those who like driving for the enjoyment or the sport, it makes all the difference. Just imagine Jordan trying to dunk in flip-flops. Before I get into the different setups and put you on some crazy tire and wheel game, let me just catch you up with the basics so that things don't get confusing later. First, I'll talk about tires. Tires have all of those little numbers on the side. I'm sure you've seen these types of markings on tires before and probably have no idea what they mean, but let me explain them. This letter right here stands for the type of car. In this case, it's passenger. That's why there's a P there. For a truck or something, it might be A/T for all terrain, but there's many other types. And then the first number, 205, that's for the tire's width in millimeters. The next number, 55, explains the size of the tire's sidewall, but not in millimeters because that would be way too simple. In this case, it actually means the tire wall is 55% of the tire's width. The tire is 55% of 205. So the second number is always dependent on the first one. If you had a tire that was 215/55, for example, then the sidewall would be larger than the 205/55 one. I don't know why they do that, but it works. The R stands for radial construction, which is the most common way that tires are made these days. 16 stands for the size of the inside of the tire. Pretty important to know if you want to get tires for your wheels. 91 stands for the tire's max weight. 91 is 1,356 pounds per tire. Then finally, the V is the tire's max speed rating. There's many other letters for speed rating, but V means the tire could comfortably handle 150 miles an hour. Oh, also there's usually markings explaining heat resistance, tread wear, and traction. For heat resistance, they're usually rated A through C. A is good heat resistance. That's all you have to know. Tread wear is your tire's longevity and stickiness. Having a tire up to a 200 rating means that they'll be good for only like 20,000 miles, but having a tire with 700 to 1,000 rating means they're good for like 80,000 plus miles. But keep in mind, the lower the number, the more sticky the tires will be. Finally, traction measures the tire's ability to stop in wet conditions, graded from C to AA. AA is the best. The max PSI is also listed on there somewhere, but I don't usually pay attention to that. Okay, now I'll briefly touch on wheel basics before we get into the good stuff. There's a few things to think about when you're getting wheels. The height, width, and offset are all important for the fitment and how the car handles. The lug pattern and the way that the wheels were made is important for strength. So height and width is pretty self-explanatory, but offset is a bit harder to understand. Imagine a line drawn on top of the wheel through the middle. This would be 0 offset. Moving the tire closer to the car would be positive offset, and moving it away from the car is negative offset. This is pretty important to keep in mind when you're buying wheels because you want your wheels to fit the car nicely and look badass. How the wheels are made is more important than you think. Steelies are the basicest of the basic wheels. They look bad and they're pretty heavy. Okay, to be fair, I've seen them look good in a few situations, but it's pretty rare. Cast wheels are a step up from Steelies. They're made by pouring aluminum into a wheel-shaped mold. If you're buying reps, then you're probably buying cast wheels. They're much more affordable to manufacture, and that's why the wheels are cheaper. They're not as strong as flow forming or forged, but better than Steelies, I suppose. Multi-piece wheels. These are the gangster wheels. There's 2-piece wheels, 3-piece wheels, more piece wheels. Anyway, these look great and can be made using the process that I was just talking about. Lug nuts or lug bolts? What in the world could they have to do with anything, right? Well, more lug nuts, more strength. That's about it. Have you ever wondered why rally cars can float across gravel like it's nothing? I can hardly run on gravel, let alone take a corner at 80 miles an hour comfortably. The setup that those cars are running can carve into the ground so nicely. They have lots of control while driving. You're more likely to break a rim than pop a tire. These poor wheels are getting sandblasted with rocks while you're cruising through the track, so that's why they break. Rally tires are so fucking fat that they can weigh like 60 pounds. Rally tires are generally pretty tall too. They have a very interesting tread pattern to help with cornering as well. Kind of like spits rocks out to the side or something. I don't really understand how it works, but it looks cool. Drag is quite the opposite. Not that kind of drag, this kind of drag. They have pizza cutters for front wheels, like very thin 17 by 4.5s in the front, which is insane. And then something crazy like 34.5 by 17 in the rear. What the fuck? A setup like this is on slicks, of course, to get as much grip on the track as they can. They look awesome. I swear, some drag cars look like the old bikes, but backwards. Have you ever wondered what people think of you based off your car's interior? It's surprisingly telling of your personality. This is what your interior says about you. Rally. A real rally car, like a 2.5 RS or something, has a super cool and super uncomfortable interior. They usually have very tight bucket seats, harnesses, a gutted interior so that you hear every pedal on the road, and also a co-driver with a clipboard.
Medium left, medium left, medium left. Listen to my call.
Although rally interiors are intimidating, they're also extremely safe. These cars can flip into trees and stuff, and you will come out completely unscathed. The coolest thing about rally cars and race cars, in my opinion, is the flocked dash. At least that's the coolest part about the interior. Flocked dashboards look awesome, and it's not hard to do it. It leaves a very clean looking dash, and I think it brings the whole interior together. Crusty. Your car smells like absolute shit. It has torn and stained seats. You can't clearly see through the windows because they're so dirty, and you prefer driving with no air circulation. You have the vents all the way off. Who does that? That's nasty. There's always a bunch of trash on the back seats, dishes on the dashboard, and like an apple core in the cup holder. The car most likely is an older one with tan or gray carpet interior. If your car looks or smells like this, you're crusty, bud. Blue collar. My blue collar boys out there have loose tools all over the floor. There's a half-eaten gas station breakfast on the dash, empty Zyn containers everywhere. You're a hard-working man, brother. Your steering wheel is most likely worn down because you don't have soft hands, brother. You spend the whole day underwater welding, so it's time to enjoy the interior of your Ford F-150 Ultra Premium Dually Mansport on the way home. This thing has about $50,000 down and a monthly payment of $5,000 for life. You have some really nice leather seats, which are unfortunately stained to because you have to use the truck for work. You have a very nice sound system though. I don't know how else you'd survive that thing without some nice bass backing your country music, even though you live in the suburbs. Drift. Drift cars have very tacky and cheap interiors. Gutted door cards, heavy 5% tint, NRG bucket seats, hydraulic e-brakes, and probably a manual radiator fan switch. Your clapped S13 dash is cracked in 5 places, and you might have one working door speaker. All of this being said, I know you can get down on the track. These cars are not built for comfort whatsoever. They're built to comfortably drive sideways, which is an uncomfortable thing to do. If your interior is like this, you're probably wealthy but in a poor looking way. Drifting is not cheap. Dusty. You drive a bigger car, one that can be lived in. There's 2 types of dusty cars. One's for adventurers and one's just because you shed too much. If you have a dusty car because you're an adventurer, it means you probably have a golden retriever, you're not afraid of getting a bit dirty, and you drive something cool like a 4Runner. But the other kind, you don't love showering by any means, and your passengers prefer being in your car with the windows down. In some ways, this is worse than crusty. You might drive a 2010 Civic or something if your car looks like this. Edgar! Edgar and friends have surprisingly clean interiors, cuh. There's a very potent cologne smell, but not unpleasant. These dudes always have a very nice G35 or S10 interior. Of course, we have to have the Starlight headliner, black leather seats, and a slightly tacky TikTok shop lighting kit. I know it's not fantastic, but it's clean for what you've got. Lower class. Lower class does not mean no class. You try your best with what you have. You probably have a clapped Camry or something. But as I said earlier, you play the cards you're dealt. While the passenger seat recliner does not work and the wing mirror is dangling off the hinge, you still manage to install some AutoZone seat covers and a little Trees air freshener. You have bubbling tint, unfortunately, but at least it looks a bit badass. class. A drawback from lower class is that you don't have amazing soundproofing in the car, so there's a lot of road noise. Upper class. This interior is most likely a German car. Nice leather, seat warmers, modern navigation, and all of the small things you would want from a German car. You might be an engineer or some sort of doctor. You don't really like cars that much, but you like comfort. So you just got a very regular traffic seeming base model German car with all of the comfortable amenities that you might like, but nothing as crazy as the next one.
But before we get into the next one, the Gassy YouTube channel is trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Please tell your friends so we can all get gassy.
Next up, we have pristine luxury. So this car has non-GMO grass-fed leather seats, lava rock heated steering wheel, naturally waterfall scented air ducts. This car has it all. Square cup holders for the Fiji water. A car with an interior like this tells me that you're some sort of CEO or weird billionaire. Very cool spending choice regardless. Lexus luxury goes under this section too. These Lexus LS400 builds have a crazy interior. The backseat windows have curtains. There's sometimes a chandelier, a bottle of whiskey with a couple of glasses, reflective tint all the way around. This is real luxury. Tasteful. I don't consider navigation in cars as a tasteful addition, because whatever the car company puts in the car, it will most likely be outdated within like 5 years. I think timeless interiors are what make a car tasteful. So I think whenever I get the chance, I will personally get a car without a f***ing iPad in the middle of it. I also don't love plastic wood trim or things like that. Enough of what I don't like. I really like darker interiors. It doesn't have to be black, but I think unless it's white, I prefer dark. I like dark brown. I think dark red is really cool. Black is always nice. I really like the older Porsche seats with those plaid cushions with the leather surrounding them. I also don't like chrome things unless it's actually metal. Then it's really cool. If you have a tasteful interior like this, you really know cars. You like driving them for the comfort, but also appreciate the simplicity of no digital bullshit all over the dash. Next up, we got the Rancher, brother. If you're a regular Cabela's enjoyer and live a little bit in the middle of nowhere, you probably took the seats out of your car and replaced that shit with mechanical bulls. Your pedals are all worn out because your boot spurs started shredding them. You have about 20 DUIs because of how much whiskey rubbed leather is in this thing. You have a very nice sheep fur steering wheel cover, very clear fishbowl tint because you don't have anything to hide, deer antlers mounted on the tow mirrors, Cabela's is on speed dial on the navigation. There's also a freezer in the center console for some summer sausage. If you have a car like this, you are a very professional rancher and you know what you're doing, brother. Next, I want to give a quick shout out to my soccer moms out there. This Honda Odyssey is built for hauling kids. The iPad holders on the back of the headrests, goldfish all over the floor, a bunch of stickers littering all of the windows. Awesome. If you drive a car like this, then you're a very busy mom. You don't need any navigation system because you somehow know exactly where you're going all of the time. And don't worry about the seats at all. There's a bunch of holes in them from dogs biting them, kids biting them, you biting them. You might as well just let them go. This car has a very interesting smell as well, but it's kind of nostalgic and very comforting. And now we have to talk about the hippies. When you open the door to this awesome Volkswagen van, you will be blessed with a very strong skunky smell mixed with patchouli oil. To climb onto the front bench seat, you'll have to push the dream catchers to the side and step over the rolled up yoga mat. These seats are covered with a massive peace sign blanket. They're surprisingly comfortable though. Everything about this van is meant to be enjoyed, including the psilocybin mushrooms growing in the corner. This interior is very fitting for outdoor adventures and road trips. Having something like this tells me that you're a very chill dude and probably have long hair, and you love your tie-dye. Now we have to talk about the takeover interior. We've all seen street takeovers from the outside on Instagram Reels. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But not many people know about how the interior looks in takeover cars. Well, of course, it's the same as any other Hellcat or base model BMW, but they all share some similarities. The inside of these cars are hotboxed with tire smoke, littered with Hennessy bottles, and smells like shit. Because fun fact, the back seats are actually covered in human shit.
They can't hold in their own bowel movements.
Because they have too much adrenaline rushing through their brains when they're spinning around. The G-force of a rollback actually makes the shit come out of them and fly into the back seat.
And all of their interiors look exactly like this. That's why people are always hanging out of the windows. Not because they're having fun, just because it smells like absolute ass. You know how car manufacturers are just making shit? You gotta wonder what the best engine is for every number of cylinders. Starting off with one cylinder, the Predator 212cc. This thing is an icon. If you've ever ridden a mini bike, a go-kart, or a pressure washer, you're probably familiar with the Predator 212. With some mods, these engines can get you going like 70 miles an hour on a mini bike. 2 2 cylinders. 2-cylinder engines are cool because they can rev so high. Like Honda made this engine that could rev up to 13,000 RPM. I imagine the vibrations alone would be terrifying. These 2-cylinder engines aren't very common in cars, but BMW's bubble car came with a 2-cylinder option. Sounds like shit. The 3-cylinder GR Corolla engine is insane. 300 stock. That's like 100 horsepower per cylinder. They also sound really cool too. Engines with an uneven number of cylinders sound so good. I don't know why. This car is high-key a dream daily of mine. I know this is more about the GR Corolla than the engine, but this car comes in a 6-speed manual with all-wheel drive, and it's that 3-cylinder turbo engine. W Toyota once again. For the 4 bangers, the K20. Honda dropping the K20 was like Kanye dropping Graduation. In my opinion, this is peak 4-cylinder experience. Cheap, reliable, and fast. Bang! Also, it's pretty small, which means you can drop it in any car. The K20 came stock in cars like the Honda Civic Type R and the Integra Type R. Unfortunately, I don't usually love 4-cylinder exhaust notes. I think EJs sound okay sometimes, but I don't know. 4 bangers just usually sound pretty ass. I'm sure there's a scientific reason for like the vibrations or some bullshit. I don't know. It just sounds kind of bad. For the 5-cylinder engines, I can't tell you how badly I wanted to give this one to Volvo. It's gonna have to go to Audi though. As much as I despise Audi, purely fueled by a love for BMW, they can make a pretty badass 5-cylinder engine. They've been making 5-cylinder engines since the 80s, and they've been doing it well. They put these engines in quite a few cars, but people would recognize them mostly from the older Quattros or maybe the RS3. 400 horsepower stock coming from 5 cylinders is pretty cool. As I said earlier, the engines with an uneven number of cylinders sound so badass, and 5 cylinders just sounds that much cooler than 3. I think 5 cylinders is the best sounding number of cylinders you can have, maybe besides 10. Let me know what you think though, I'm undecided. 6 cylinders. For 6 cylinders, I want to make a few categories. 6 is a pretty universal number of cylinders to have because there's inline 6, flat 6, and V6. So I want to talk about the best of each of those categories. Porsche obviously makes the best flat 6. The GT2 RS is crazy.
700 horsepower pushed out of 6 cylinders.
0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds.
I feel like this might be the best of the best as far as 6-cylinder engines, but let me get into the rest so you can decide. As I've preached before, BMW is the king of inline 6. The S54 from the E46 M3 is going to be my shout for the best inline 6. The last high-revving, naturally aspirated M3 engine from BMW. 333 horsepower with a really smooth power curve is awesome, first of all, and it's reliable. It doesn't get much better than that, does it? I'd hate to end it there for inline 6s though. I'm gonna give the best turbo inline 6 to the 2JZ. I'm sorry to all the RB lovers, but the 2J is just a better boosted inline 6. As for V6s, this one might be a bit of a surprise. Fuck the GTR V6. Fuck the EcoBoost, of course. Guys, the V6 winner goes to the Honda J35. Not only does this engine make pretty good stock power, but it's super reliable too. 7 cylinders. Nothing! 8 cylinders. 8 cylinders might be the most badass number of cylinders you can have. Having a V8 engine just means you like cheap, dumb power. Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler all make the best American V8s that we all know and love. And I think the small block might have been the most influential engine out of all of the V8s. But none of these sound nearly as good as the Ferrari 136 or the BMW S65. Europeans always know how to make things sound great. I'll give Lexus the crown for luxury. The 1UZ FE was pretty freaking sweet, and I also want to give the shout to the BMW S65 for being the most stupidly engineered one, but 9 cylinders. These are just like the 7-cylinder engines, but better in the plane world. If you like planes, you'll love 9 cylinders.
El número 10.
The Lexus LFA sounds so fucking good. Definitely the V10 of all time. It's a 4.8 liter naturally aspirated V10 developed partially by Yamaha's music division. These bitches make pianos, so you know it's gonna sound really good. They basically tune the sound like they would tune one of their pianos. It has a very deep aggressive idle and a screaming top end. It performs well and all that, but this one wins best V10 because it just sounds so good. It's probably the best sounding car on this list, or in the world. 11 cylinders.
Fuck you!
12 cylinders. The V12 is Kodak Black's favorite engine. The Europeans knew exactly what they were doing. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mercedes, they all made insanely good V12s. But I want to talk about a lesser known gem. The BMW, of course, S70. They built a V12 specifically for the McLaren F1, which made 627 horsepower in the 90s. And it was just an awesome engine overall. The Ferrari Colombo V12 was also insane. There's just too many V12s to talk about. They're all awesome. They sound cool as shit and they perform like two inline sixes next to each other. They're just so awesome. 13, 14, and 15 cylinders.
Fuck you again.
Actually, I don't know why a V14 doesn't exist, because it's like you could have 7 on each side and that would be kind of cool, but it just isn't real. 16 cylinders. So here we are, 16 whole fucking explosions happening in the engine. Do you want to know how that sounds?
Bang, 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 bang.
16 explosions happening in the engine. More cylinders, more power, right? Let me tell you about the Cadillac V16 from the 1930s. This thing was extremely luxurious at the time and made a very solid
165 horsepower.
That 3-cylinder engine that I mentioned earlier made 300 horsepower. So 13 more cylinders and it loses 140 horsepower? What the hell, Cadillac? And for the next 16-cylinder engine, I have to talk about the way back when Bugatti dropped the W16 in their Bugatti Veyron, which is an 8-liter quad-turbo engine making 1,001 horsepower. I don't think anybody should own this amount of horsepower stock, but whatever, fuck it, Bugatti, let's do it. And then they stepped it up a notch, and the Chiron and Super Sport came with an 8-liter quad turbo V16, W16 I mean.
That makes up to 1,600 horsepower.
1,600 horsepower. 100 horsepower per cylinder in a W16. That's the fastest street legal car ever. It's crazy. Let me put you on some of the most insane BMW game ever, starting with the M50, M52, and M54 engines. The E34, E36, E39, E46, Z3, early X5s, basically anything BMW put these engines in them. These engines are crazy. There's a good reason. They're that good. Okay, first of all, these engines are smooth. At 6,000 RPM, you can still like set your beer on the dash and it will not spill. Because BMW is the inline six company. They know exactly what they're doing. In short, these cars are reliable enough to daily, but fun enough to like, you know, step on the gas pretty hard, and definitely simple enough to fix them. They're pretty reliable, but like if you need to fix them, they're a very straightforward engine. You can boost these engines for like $1,000 on eBay. They might blow up though. Unlike the N52, the BMW N52 B30 is the perfect inline six with no boost that BMW made. While it does not have a dipstick, it is a very, very reliable engine. It's kind of like the little brother to the N54. But let's be honest, it's kind of the older brother because it's humble, it's cool, it doesn't have turbos, and it's super reliable. Like, I mean, you want to just hold the gas down for fun? Do it. You can just bounce off the rev limiter. This thing's going to drive you home. You're never going to get stranded with an N52. But it's very slow. I mean, like, it is real. It's a very slow engine. I mean, stock, I think they make like 230 horsepower. I brought my N52 up to about 270. It's still pretty slow. That's why you'd get an N54. The N54 is bullshit. You know, the twin turbo version of the N52 has a cast iron block, but it still blows up a lot more than the N52. If you want the project car of all time, get the N54. Super tunable car, but it's gonna blow up. The next car, I almost don't even want to put you on it because I kind of want to buy one for myself. It's the BMW 335D. It's a perfect mix between the N54 and the N52 with the miles per gallon of a Prius. At 40 miles a gallon, 270 horsepower stock in a diesel BMW. Once you do an EGR delete, you're gonna get 350 horsepower with a tune, of course. The most reliable, most comfortable, most coolest sounding BMW ever. Do I hear Optimus Prime hauling ass down the I-5, or is that just a BMW 335D? These things sound insane. Why don't more people know about this car? This car is f***ing awesome. So let's say you want everything from a BMW 335D, except for the space. They are very small cars. Even though the E90 is a sports sedan, it's pretty cramped, and that's why you get the E70. The BMW E70 chassis is the SUV version of the E90s, and it comes with the 335D version. If for some reason you have a family of 5, like by accident or something, well, this is the perfect car for you. So the E70 doesn't only come in the diesel version. It also comes with the X550i, or one of the options is the X550. This engine is so unreliable that I'd suggest getting an N54 before you get one of these. But like at the same time, it's making like 400 horsepower stock. The N63, I believe. N63? Yeah, might have to double check that. The BMW E70 X550i is crazy. Massive car, 400 and something horsepower stock. This thing's pretty sweet. They look pretty cool too. I think the front looks kind of buns, but the back is awesome. They're really big, they're really good looking, especially for a soccer mom car. I'd say one of the practical elements of it is that fat people can sit in it. Okay, but let's say you want the space of the SUV, but you want the sportiness and the size of the sedan. That's where you get a wagon. Unfortunately, the US has kind of f***ed us. They don't have many wagons to offer from BMW, just the slower ones. Like the BMW E91 comes with the N52 engine. E34 Touring comes with the M50 or M52 engine. There's options out there. They're just not that great. Maybe it's worth doing an engine swap. One of the greatest things about owning a BMW is the BMW has some of the best stock rims that you can get. The M Parallels, the Style 65 as well from the E39 M5. There's a BMW Style 5 BBS RC, BMW Style 32s. I mean, you get the idea. BMW has some awesome wheels to choose from. I want to put you on the craziest BMW wheel game as well. BMW sells OEM spinners. Well, not spinners, just like center caps that float. They're badass. I think another important thing to touch on with BMWs is they all sound good with a muffler delete or just a modified exhaust. Like if you look at an Infiniti G35, for example, it just sounds like shit when you modify the exhaust. But when you cut the muffler off of almost any BMW, it just sounds amazing. I know this doesn't really have any correlation to what I was just talking about, but the BMW E28 looks so fucking cool. The 633 CSI or the 850 CSI as well, like Jesus Christ. BMW just knows exactly what they're doing. But I gotta be honest, BMW absolutely fucked up once. It was the BMW i3, I believe. Holy shit. I think another thing to consider is that BMW owns Mini Cooper, and they produced with Chrysler the R53 Mini, a 4-cylinder supercharged Mini Cooper, and it comes with a 6-speed transmission. F***ing cool, man. It's fun. Now, originally I was not going to touch on these cars. I think the BMW 328i from like 2013, it's cool. I mean, the N20 engines sound okay. They're just kind of bad. Like they're 4 cylinders, they're turbo. You might as well just get a Subaru or something if you want a 4-cylinder turbo. If you're getting a BMW, you have to get a 6-cylinder engine. I'm just saying, like that's what they're known for. That's what you should get. Get a B58. I'm sure if you know anything about BMWs, you probably know about the B58 already. I mean, say it with me now. Downpipe and a tune. Downpipe and a tune. These things just download power. You just get sent an email, 150 horsepower. Like, what the fuck? Do you know any other cars that do that? Or engines, I mean, like, yeah, get a 340i, 440i, just an M Light. So BMW's xDrive is their all-wheel drive system, and although it might not be as good as Audi's Quattro, it's like still really good, and it has a really good bias as well. So it's like 40% of the power is in the front and 60s in the back. But what's even better is there's an app called xDelete. The app costs like $150. You download the app, you get a license, and then you can just upload xDelete, and you can like customize how much xDrive you have. You can also make it all rear-wheel drive if you feel like doing some donuts or something. I think if you're gonna lower your car, I definitely would suggest lowering your BMW. They have so much space in the fenders. You can get just H&R Sport Springs. It's like totally great ride height and it feels comfortable. If you want a more stiff ride, you can definitely get some BC Racing coilovers. Bilstein definitely makes some good ones as well. I think one of the more important things that I want to touch on from this is that there's actually like a mini fridge in your center console. So we all know Volvo is the safe bricks on the road. Literally one of the most rectangular wagons you could ever see other than the Cube car maybe. They're most likely driven by your local college professor or maybe a chiropractor. But did you know that Volvos can basically anything they want to? Volvos are extremely badass cars. They're so badass that even Gus Fring from Breaking Bad drives one of these. They're kind of chill looking on the outside, but pretty freaky on the inside. Like 100 years ago, Volvo got the reputation for being built like a tank. Say you bomb a Volvo dealership, the smoke will clear and the building will be gone. All the Volvos will be as spotless as they were when they came out of the factory. If you catch a Volvo in the wild, you kind of have to steer clear, because if you get in an accident with this car, you're gonna get mowed down. These cars will not sacrifice their driver for your safety. If you T-bone a Volvo, your car is probably gonna get totaled, and theirs will not. If you see a Volvo flip over and roll towards you, you're probably gonna get steamrolled, but that's obviously not a realistic scenario because a Volvo will never flip over. Volvos are just so badass that they will not break ever, and they will not explode.
And they will just sit exactly where they are.
If you've watched my other videos, then you should know that BMWs are the best inline-six company ever. Well, Volvo is basically the same, but for turbo inline-5 engines. Back in the 80s, they built the 240 Turbo. This car comes in almost any trim you can think of, and it was surprisingly fast for the time, but not quite as fast as the 850 TR or the 850R that they built in the 90s. These are basically the first Volvos that mogged hard. 250 horsepower in the 90s is absolutely fucked. The Mustang GT only had 215 horsepower. 250 horsepower in the 90s is like bringing a chainsaw to a pillow fight. First of all, turbo inline 5s might be the best sounding engines ever. Secondly, the video title does not lie. Volvos look awesome. Something about the geometry, the headlights, I don't know, they just look like the craziest sleepers of all time. Maybe that's what Volvo is, the craziest sleeper of all time. Volvos just subtly look so nice. They have so many nice features too. For example, let me just talk about the Volvo S60R and V70R for a minute. These are basically the same cars, except the S60R is a sedan and the V70R is a wagon. I believe these came out in the early 2000s. This is the time that car manufacturers were snorting coke on the job. BMW put a V10 in a family sedan. The Audi RS6 C5 was insane. And of course we have the E55 AMG and the Jaguar XJR. These cars were just wild. Horsepower numbers that were unheard of at the time. But then we have the Volvo S60R and V70R. So these turbo inline 5 family cars packed a very solid and reliable 300 horsepower stock. They come with a Spaceball manual transmission, which is pretty badass. But more importantly, they were way overbuilt. Have you ever heard of stitched leather in the bottom of a car's door card? They also have suspension that you can change as you drive. Comfort's just for when you're going for a cruise, sports when you're driving through the canyons, and advanced is for when you're actually racing. Volvo claims that their suspension can keep the car in a horizontal attitude relative to the road. To be fair, I don't know what the else the car could be relative to the road, like perpendicular, but regardless, the suspension settings are really cool. These cars also came stock with Brembo brakes. They can basically stop on a dime. The leather seats are super comfortable too, and they have a rare trim called Nordicap, which is a blue leather interior, which is awesome. Anyway, I've basically sold you on the S60R V70R, right? Well, let me first put you on the Volvo S80. It's their 2007 V8 sedan. They're not terribly fast, but super comfortable and sound amazing. So the V8s in these cars were actually built by Yamaha. Yeah, the people who make pianos, lawnmowers, boat engines. They also made a Volvo V8 and it screams. I think stock it's about 315 horsepower, which is still pretty solid. It's not super fast, but it's very solid for a sedan. You can find these incredibly cheap on Facebook too, which is nice. But there's some drawbacks before you go buy one. So their all-wheel drive system, I don't really know what I think of it yet. It's super good all-wheel drive and you will not slip out. That being said, it's way front-wheel drive bias. And we know how I feel about front-wheel drive. Also, there's the steering. I've heard these cars have very loose steering and it's not very responsive. They have a really wide wheelbase, so you don't get a very tight turning radius either. And unfortunately, there's limited aftermarket support. There's extremely good aftermarket support, but sadly, there's just not very much of it. I've heard that IPD is a great company for aftermarket support. Anyway, that's where the cons end. I think one of the greatest things about these cars is how underground they are. As I said earlier, Volvos are the best sleepers. So what I'm getting to is that only old people drive these cars, right? Which means these cars are extremely well maintained and you don't need to worry about buying them secondhand. These cars are literally grandma owned and grandma driven. You don't usually see grandmas at street takeovers, right? They're also usually listed for under $10,000. Which my broke ass really fucks with. Next, I want to talk about the newer Volvos. I'll get back to the old ones in a minute, but I don't usually see people talking about the newer ones. Did you know that some of these cars are making about 450 horsepower stock? The Volvo S90, V90, and XC90 all make dumb power. Unfortunately, they're all hybrid cars, but I think 450 horsepower is pretty tempting, right? I think these cars would be very ideal daily drivers, or at least a great car to have for a road trip. Volvo really knows what they're doing when it comes to comfort. 58 miles a gallon is nothing to complain about either. Okay, back to the older Volvos. They're still great cars. They look look great, they're comfortable, but they're very far from Canyon Carvers. Some people have built very impressive Volvos though. The Volvo 240 might be the perfect car for anyone. They are slow, but there's so many trim levels for this car, and so many people have modified them into drift cars, off-roading cars, drag cars, race cars. They're kind of like the BMW E30 of Volvo in my opinion. Just a perfect blank canvas. The Volvo 240 is super slow, but fortunately it has a very large engine bay, so you can toss something faster in there. While Volvo may not be the perfect car brand, they definitely have created some amazing cars. The safety of Volvos unfortunately has to take away from the fun a bit. The really safe all-wheel drive system or the wide turning radius. While Volvo has created the daily driver of all time, there's a chance that they haven't created the sports car you've been looking for your whole life. Volvo mogs, but only as much as safe family cars can mog. I've gathered 21 cars from movies and shows, and we're going to be going from level 1, which is beats walking, to I my pants at level 7. These are like the bottom of the barrel cars. Putting them at level 1 isn't because they're less iconic than the other cars, but just because they're mechanically the worst. First, I want to talk about Saul Goodman's car, his first car. He would always have to park next to luxury cars with this box, which was a bit embarrassing. It made him look like a lawyer too. It was always breaking down, Breaking Bad, and even random strangers were just clowning it. I was always impressed that he peeled out whenever he drove anywhere. Not because it was fast, but just because it didn't blow up. The next car at level 1 is Ricky's Chrysler New Yorker from Trailer Park Boys. This dude is married to this car, but holy moly, it's a piece of crap. If you haven't watched the show, all you need to know is that people literally call this the shipmobile. The paint job is very interesting, or lack thereof, always full of garbage or has garbage on top of it, but at least it makes for a good hairdryer. For the last one under level 1, we have the golf cart from Regular Show. I know it's not a car, but it had to be mentioned. This thing is so fucking bad that it's almost good. Even though it's always blowing up or something, it always manages to come back to life somehow. And although it's at tier 1, it has literally ended up in space before, which I don't think I can say for any of the other cars on this list. Level 2 is usually drives. The first car under level 2 is Mr. Bean's Mini Cooper. He's always managing to whip it through roundabouts, juking that one Reliance ankles without tipping over, and then parking it perfectly. I'm surprised that that thing is still running after all that. I know I said it's at level 2, but trust me, some of these cars get kind of crazy. The second car under level 2 is the Bluesmobile. The Blues Brothers drove around in this decommissioned police car. It's definitely a step up from the mobile, but its drivability is hanging on by a thread. If someone flips off this car, it might fall apart. I'm putting this at the same level as Mr. Bean's car just because of the chase they got into where all the cops got piled up. That was badass. Honestly, I might have to take back what I said about the drivability because look at this power slide. Peter Griffin's station wagon. I don't know how Peter Griffin managed to pull Lois while driving this Ford Country Squire. It's literally a wooden box with wheels. This car is painfully boring, but maybe if he knew how to reverse with a trailer, I would like it more. It's only at level 2 because it looks somewhat comfortable and has survived a lot of but it is a very boring car. At level 3, we have the chill cars. The first car we have under level 3 is Scooby-Doo's van. Whether you're solving a murder mystery or just getting faded and eating a bunch, the mystery van is the best place to do it all. I've always thought that the Scooby-Doo mystery van looked super comfortable. It would be a really fun car to haul your friends around in. I think most of all, I like the paint job. Definitely would add this to the collection. Towmater is a choice from my personal collection. He's super chill and very reliable. He also happens to be good at almost anything he does. I think Tokyo Drift Mater would be higher on the list, but Classic Mater is a solid, chilled truck. Also, he can reverse faster than almost any other car on this list. The Dumb and Dumber dog car. It's basically just a chill monstrosity on wheels. It's got floppy ears, a wagging tail, and all of the stains you would expect. Although it's very terrifying, I like it. I think furries would with this car too. It would be fun to roll up to FurCon in that thing. Level 4, Tough. Obviously we have to have the cars from the Flintstones under Tough, because you have to be pretty strong to carry this thing. Is this even considered horsepower anymore? Is it just dude power? The reason this thing is in level 4 is mainly because it has the best miles per gallon on this list. You just need some strong ass dudes, which I know a lot of. Austin Powers' Jaguar is by far the most groovy car on this list. This thing represents the 60s just how I remember them. Austin Powers is the player of all time. That's why I put him under level 4. Junior's Challenger. Junior's Dodge Challenger was f***ing dope, almost entirely because Junior was driving it. I don't know why Walter gave him this car because he can't even drive with one foot, but props to Walter for actually going through with it and getting his kid a cool car. I hope to do the same for my kid one day. Very tough, Walter. Very tough. Too bad it f***ing exploded. At level 5, we have the badass cars. Ice Cube's Lincoln Navigator. I know this thing got fucked up by the end of the movie, but at the beginning, it was an absolute pimp cruiser. You see those damn wheels? The Satchel Paige bobblehead, the big ass spinners of course, and very nice leather interior. Ice Cube looks badass in this thing. I was sad to see it ruined by the end of the movie though. Brian's Mark IV Supra from Fast and Furious. Of course, Brian's Mark IV Supra is under the badass level, not only because of what it is, but for the progression from where it started. This dude knows how to build a car. It has a nice body kit, TRD style hood, 19-inch wheels, and smoked that dumbass Ferrari. This thing is awesome. The DeLorean from Back to the Future. It's definitely the most flashy car of these cars yet. I know the Supra has bright orange paint, but the DeLorean left 2 parallel fire streaks in the street before it teleported. Super badass move by the DeLorean. This thing would be the best car at any street takeover. That's why it's the last one on level 5. Level 6 is balling. Of course, the basketball god from regular show is the first on level 6. I've never seen a more chill baller than this guy. The whole car is flexing. This thing looks like it was spec'd by Johnny Dang and Bling Bling Boy, especially with the wings on the roof. I like his fit too. The whole entrance from the sky is another reason I put this in level 6. Jordan's Lamborghini Countach from The Wolf of Wall Street is a super baller car. This car is the epitome of his badassery and success. Well, success. Wrecking it was kind of a representation of his downfall, but we can ignore that for now. The Countach makes about 455 horsepower with a naturally aspirated V12. Definitely a fire collection piece. I'd say the Ferrari that Ferris Bueller stole is extremely baller. No wonder he and his friends borrowed it. I low-key would too. I think this car is baller, but not Ferris necessarily. I think the valets that whip the car around town are the true ballers. Level 7. My pants. The first car under level 7 is Batman's Tumbler. I would absolutely myself if I saw, heard, or got to drive this car. They're not insanely fast, but they're just so cool. They make about 500 horsepower with a Chevy V8, but they're just super heavy. I'm not sure if you could actually destroy this thing either. Super cool car. James Bond's Aston Martin is definitely a car that I would not want to my pants in, but I might have to. This car has twin front-mounted machine guns,
rotating license plates,
An oil slick dispenser. A rear smoke screen to get away from the bad guys. Ejector seats for whatever reason you might need ejector seats for. A bulletproof shield and a hidden tracking device for when you misplace it.
I would definitely crap myself. This car is so cool and so good looking. I would definitely not want to scratch this thing, so I probably wouldn't even drive it if I had the chance to. And for the very last one on this list, we have Optimus Prime. I would absolutely soil my pants. From lifted trucks to super slammed cars, this is what your suspension says about you. If your car has stock suspension, you probably have a pretty comfortable ride, or at least it does what you need it to do from the factory. If you're doing some easier off-roading, but you don't need to do anything too crazy, then maybe the stock 4Runner suspension is enough for you. Or maybe you occasionally go drive your car through the back roads at legal speeds, and your stock Miata suspension handles the corners well enough for you. A good suspension setup can be pretty pricey, so I understand wanting to keep it stock. Cut springs. Speaking of pricey, cutting your springs is not pricey at all. I mean, maybe putting a bunch of rocks in your trunk would be cheaper, but cutting the springs is still very cheap. After you cut your springs, the car might look pretty good, but only for about an hour before it sags and becomes undrivable. If you cut your car's springs, you don't really give a shit about the car and you're just having fun.
lifted.
Hell yeah, brother. Lifting your car or truck is cool, as long as you're doing it for a good reason. I think the only good reason to lift is for off-roading, not just for going to the store and back. Because when your car is higher up, so is your center of gravity. If you don't actually need the extra ground clearance, you're just trading your vehicle's handling for looks. If you have a lifted car for a good reason, then you're probably the type to go on awesome adventures. If you lifted your car for looks, then your wife's name might be Frank.
Hydraulics.
Hydraulics are fucking cool. I think bouncing cars are the most ridiculous, but also the most badass suspension setups that you can do. It's just so impractical for anything except listening to music. Putting hydraulics on your car became popular in the 60s because people wanted good-looking low cars, but they'd get harassed by the police. So they decided to add hydraulics to lift the car up and avoid tickets. But I suppose at some point it got taken a step further, and these cars jump now. So yeah, I don't really know how the fuck that happened. If you're running hydraulics, you're either a bit older and into the classic stuff, or you're just kind of funny.
Lowering spring.
Lowering springs can be the less expensive option for making your car just look lower, but still ride nicely. The slightly stiffer springs help you around the corners and feel a lot better than stock springs. I would recommend swapping out your stock shocks when you install lowering springs. If you have lowering springs, you probably just don't feel like spending coilover money. I think lowering springs are respectable, but I'd definitely go with coilovers if you can. Coilovers are a great option because with high quality ones, you can adjust so many things on them. People don't just get coilovers to adjust the ride height. You can adjust things like the camber, caster, toe, preload, damping, corner weight, anti-roll, and sometimes other things. They're very amazing. Sometimes coilovers can make the ride a bit too bumpy for some people, but they make cornering and everything else just that much better. Coilovers can be used for almost any driving setup. Track, drag, rally, precision, hill climb, drifting, and basically anything else. But make sure to get good ones. You're better off getting nice lowering springs than cheap coilovers. Reasonable coilovers can start at around 800 bucks. That even is still kind of cheap for coilovers. You're going to want to set aside about $1,500 for a nice set of coilovers. Bilstein is a great brand. BC Racing is pretty great too, but something like the $300 Max Speeding Rods coilovers are far from ideal. Coilovers are kind of an all or nothing type of deal. So in my opinion, if you run good coilovers on your car, you're pretty set on making this thing handle like a go-kart. If you're running cheap coilovers, then all I can do for you is pray. Bags. Bags are for the fitment boys. They sound fucking awesome when you air them out. And they always look good when you're parked. They can make for a pretty smooth ride too, but they're just not quite as good as coilovers for handling. They're also super expensive, so if you're running bags, then you might be kind of rich. Also, bags aren't the easiest to install, so you either have the capital to pay for the labor, or you have a brain that works. Slammed, stanced, or static cars are interesting to me. I think excessive camber is pretty stupid, because to me it doesn't look great, and it wears out your tires very fast. But I know the people who are driving these cars are having a lot of fun, so I envy that at least. If your car is stanced, you're just having fun, don't really care how your car performs as long as it looks good. Static cars have no suspension. They look super funny to me because they're always bouncing around on the tires. They're just like slammed or stanced cars. You're only doing it for the fun of it. Also, these cars have super stretched tires for some reason. Sway bars! Most cars have sway bars from the factory, but you can buy sport ones that stiffen up your car a lot. They don't change the up and down suspension, just your car's body roll. Sporty sway bars are a game changer for taking corners and canyon carving. If you've installed sway bars on your car, then you absolutely know what you're doing. Nice job. But some people like to detach their sway bar end links when they're off-roading, because then each wheel can move more freely. If you're rock crawling without your sway bar connected, then your car can have amazing travel. I wouldn't suggest attaching your sway bar end links unless you're actually going off-roading. That much body roll would look ridiculous on the street. If you run no sway bars off-roading, that tells me that your car can go almost anywhere.
Wheel spacers!
Wheel spacers are more of a fitment thing than suspension, but I still think they're worth mentioning. People use wheel spacers when they want their wheels to poke out a bit more, but they don't want to spend money on a new set of wide wheels. Wheel spacers are a bit sketchy, but as long as you get hub-centric ones with a little lip on the bore, then you're good. If you run wheel spacers, you either have perfect fitment or you're a little bit poor. Broken suspension. It's not necessarily something you intentionally run, but you will know if you see someone who's driving a car with broken suspension. If their shocks are blown, they're always bouncing around and the car is handling pretty poorly. Or if your car makes a bunch of clunking noises over bumps and turns, it could be the ball joints, control arms, or tie rods, basically anything down there. It's pretty easy to tell when your suspension isn't working well. Regardless of what your suspension setup is, if it's broken, you're most likely not very well off financially, or maybe you're just weird or just a procrastinator. Suspension is one of the most important aspects of your car, so you should always make sure everything is functioning correctly. Squatted truck. Squatting a truck is like the armoire of closeted, the closeted of closeted, a whole wardrobe of closeted. Not only does it look really strange, but how the fuck do you see? Like your truck is literally 45 degrees towards the sky, and you're not even hauling shit. I don't consider squatting a truck a suspension setup. I feel like it's just a weird lifestyle. I don't know. All that angle just to drive to Cabela's and back, I don't see the point. If your truck is squatted, you're very closeted, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. And you do not have squatter's rights. You gotta get rid of that shit. Electromagnetic. Electromagnetic suspension is very far from common. I just think it's interesting, so I want to talk about it. In 2004, Bose released a prototype of the Lexus LS400 with electromagnetic suspension. Yes, Bose, like the headphones, dabbles in suspension. This suspension was super smooth, unbelievably smooth, but the drawback was the price and weight, so it never really made it into production. Eventually, they used the tech to make semi-truck seat suspension though, so that's pretty awesome. If you have electromagnetic suspension, that tells me that you're lying, or maybe you're a trucker, I don't know. So as long as you're not strange change, your car probably has an exhaust. Everybody's exhaust is a little bit different, and it's one of the first things you modify when you're modding your car, because it changes the whole experience of driving the car. So now I want to talk about what your exhaust says about you. To the people that just have a stock exhaust, that lets me know that you're not very into cars. You might drive a Kia Soul and just go to work and back. Another reason your car's exhaust might be stock is if the car has a louder exhaust from the factory, like the Mercedes C63. You either have a very cool car or you're a bit boring. Next up, we have the straight pipe. If your car has a straight pipe, that lets me know that you didn't quite get enough attention as a child. You probably forgot to take your medication when you made the decision to give your poor car a f***ing straight pipe, just to release some pent-up anger. Your car is most likely under $5,000, and it's probably powered by a VQ engine. Your credit score might be somewhere around 13. You're probably talking to the dudes with custom exhaust talking about, you need to release the beautiful symphony that your engine produces and cut that shit off, twin. I don't really with straight pipes if you haven't caught that already. Next up, we have the burble tune or flame tune. I know burble tunes and flame tunes don't actually have anything to do with your exhaust system itself, but I think touching on this is still very relevant. Starting off with the burble tune. Burbles are not bad. There's a difference between your car having natural burbles on deceleration and actually scaring people. I think having a burble tune tells me that you're a younger driver and drive a newer BMW. You don't have many friends, so you decided to push people further away from you by making your car sound like it's braking while you're driving. As far as flame tunes, I mostly think they're weird, and you're probably weird for having one. But if your car happens to spit a flame with two-step or something, or just spits a flame somehow, then it's extremely cool, and you're extremely cool. If you pay someone to tune your car just to waste gas by burning it and ruining your exhaust, then I think you're a weird attention seeker. But don't even get me started on spark plugs in the exhaust. Next up, we have the muffler delete. If you're running a muffler delete on your car, you definitely care more about your car than someone with a straight pipe. I can respect it. It's definitely one of the cheapest exhaust modifications that you can do besides just cutting the entire thing off, but I think a muffler delete might just be a Car Guy Canon event, but I would definitely suggest upgrading eventually. Okay, next up we have the axle back. An axle back exhaust is exactly what it sounds like. It's just taking care of everything behind your rear axles, so most likely just the mufflers. If you're running an axle back exhaust, you have more taste than someone who did a muffler delete. You like to hear a little more noise in the stock exhaust, but you don't want to be obnoxious. You might be a bit older, but you're still a chiller.
The resonator delete.
I personally believe resonator deletes are for the village idiots. Your resonator helps keep drone out, and I can't think of any reason that you'd want your car to drone. Drone is the sound that your car makes at a certain RPM, and you will just be hearing it constantly if you don't have a resonator. If you'd like a higher flowing resonator just to build some power, just buy a vibrant ultra quiet resonator or some other sport resonator. No need to go deaf hearing the bad sounds coming from your car. Now I want to talk about the catback system. This is probably one of the first actually good ones. Someone who has a catback exhaust has a lot of respect for their car. They might not really know how to use a welder, so they just buy the kit that they can put together themselves. You can usually buy these exhaust systems for a reasonable price online and just bolt it on. These exhaust systems can give the car a great tone. They usually replace the stock muffler and resonator with a sportier muffler and resonator. When I say sportier, I just mean smaller and higher flowing. They just allow for some more volume to come from the engine without ruining the driving experience. And your car will probably stay legal. Next up, we have headers. If your car has catless headers, it means you're pretty far into the build, and you most likely don't live in California. Catless headers give a pretty solid bump in horsepower. They remove the primary cats, which allows the exhaust to escape the engine much faster than before. Unfortunately, headers can make your car sound quite different, for better or for worse. When I put headers on my BMW, I was very happy with the power gain, but I didn't like the sound as much as the stock headers. If you put headers on your car, you're cool, but also be careful because it can be illegal. Next up, we have the dual exhaust. Dual exhaust systems are 100% badass, and they can actually help with your car's performance if you're running an X pipe or an H pipe. These exhaust setups are common for sports cars or cars with a V8 engine. If this is your exhaust setup, you probably have a cool car. But wait, some people have fake dual exhausts. Just having two exhaust tips on the back of your car does not mean you have a dual exhaust. A true dual exhaust goes from the headers all the way to the muffler separately, while a fake dual exhaust, like on the Dodge Charger V6, just a regular single exhaust that splits into two at the end. If you have a dual exhaust, you're probably chill and have an awesome car. If not, time to hand over the pinks to another naive driver, then upgrade to something legit. Single exit big bore. If you have a big single exit exhaust, you're probably an anime watcher who also likes cars. I'm always seeing these setups on the JDM cars like the Toyota Supra, the Honda Civic, 240SX, and basically all the Japanese cars. Having a big single exit exhaust either mean you have a super cool Japanese car, or you just slapped a fart can on regular traffic. So it's hard to conclude what this setup says about you. You're either in high school and just want a loud car, or you have a refined taste and a sweet sounding car. Now I have to talk about the hood exit exhaust. Having a hood exit on your car might actually be one of the coolest things ever. Okay, obviously this is probably the most bold mod you could do to your car ever, but they look super cool, especially if you have a diesel car. I would recommend this mod to about 1% of the population, but to those who did it, you're probably badass and live in the middle of absolutely nowhere. The valved exhaust. So a valved exhaust is pretty much the perfect exhaust system you could possibly have, but it means you can change your car from quiet to loud whenever you want. Having a valved exhaust probably means your parents bought your car for you, because having an exhaust like this is really only common on newer sports cars. So unless you install the valves yourself, you're either rich or spoiled, but you also have a sweet exhaust setup, so that's nice. Building or paying someone to build a custom exhaust for your car is the best of the best ways to make noise come out of your car. The reason that this is the best option is because you can choose the highest quality parts to put in your car, and you can decide exactly what you want your exhaust to look like and sound like. You can add an H pipe for torque, you could add an X pipe for horsepower, and you can add a drone pipe to reduce the bad sounds that come out of your car. If your car has a high quality custom exhaust, you're probably the coolest person ever, and you also have a solid chunk of money. Or debt. Either way, you truly care about your car and want the performance and sound benefits from a custom exhaust. So you're the coolest person on this list by far. Since you clicked this video, you're probably desperate for some good car mods. Well, don't worry, bro Chacho, cause I'll be going over some things you've never even thought of. And some shit you didn't even know was possible. All in an effort to help make your shitbox a rocket. Ball Knowledge car mod number 1. Cutting off the end of the ground electrode on your spark plugs. This is actually some crazy ball knowledge. This sounds a little crazy, right? How could you cut off the tip of your electrode and actually help your car perform better? This is more of an old school tuner trick. The idea is that you get more exposure of the spark to air fuel mixture, allowing for a quicker burn time. This actually did help in older engines since they weren't designed as efficiently as new ones. Basically, you cut that curly thing right here so that the part that sparks is over on the corner thingy right here. This makes the spark sharper and awesomer. It's helpful with high boost and high compression engines since the combustion chamber is under more turbulence and not as chillaxed. But before you go cut the plugs on your N20 engine or something, just don't. Crap is engineered a lot better these days, so you'd be better off doing this mod on older engines only. Please, thank you. Ball Knowledge car mod number 2. Shimming your oil pump to increase oil pressure. This is actually a pretty popular way to increase your oil pressure for free, or for like 25 cents, I guess, since most people use a quarter for this mod. It's some pretty high-tech shit. So basically, you put this coin under the spring of the oil pressure regulator. When you plop that coin there, it makes the spring stiffer, which makes the oil pressure higher. Nice! So why do people do this? High blood pressure isn't great, but high oil pressure is. This mod is helpful if you're planning on abusing your engine in something like drifting or racing where RPMs are constantly in the high end. Having high oil pressure will create a better lubricating film between the components and hopefully extend their lives. Doing this mod is definitely risky, and a better option would be to buy a performance-oriented oil pump, but it's fine if you don't want to throw money into your engine. Well, I guess this is throwing money into your engine, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Ball Knowledge car mod number 3. Turbo timers. I feel like turbo timers are underloved and not as popular as they should be. These are more useful in older cars like early 2000s and below, but they still deserve lots and lots of love. Basically, a turbo timer continues to run your engine for a set amount of time after you turn the car off, typically for a good like 1 to 3 minutes. But why would you want this when gasoline costs as much as liquid gold? What this does is it lets oil continue to circulate through the turbo to let it cool down. If you get home after a crazy drive and shut your car down right away, the turbo will still be crazy hot, and a lot of the time it cooks the oil inside of the turbo. This will create a carbon buildup, which shortens the life of the turbo. A lot of new turbos are water cooled, so this mod isn't as helpful in most new cars. Oil technology has also come a long way, so it's not as prone to cooking itself. While this doesn't happen as much in new cars, it's still a very worthwhile mod, and it is a bit of a pain in the ass to install, I'm just letting you know. But they're really cool. Ball Knowledge car mod number 4. Firing rings and copper head gaskets. Yeah! If you have these mods in your car, I already know you're a freak of nature, and the car you're driving is pushing crazy numbers. Firing rings and copper head gaskets are the perfect combination and almost always intended to be used together. When a firing ring is being applied to an engine block, a groove is cut around each cylinder and a steel firing ring is placed in each one, creating a metal to metal contact between the head and the block. The purpose of this is to prevent combustion pressure from blowing the head gasket apart. I'm looking at all of the Subaru owners right now. And adds another layer of protection, which is always good. Copper head gaskets are awesome because they can handle very high cylinder pressure since copper is so malleable. So these copper head gaskets create amazing seals for combustion and don't actually seal the water and oil passages. If your car has a firing ring and copper head gasket setup, you're probably pushing horsepower numbers in the thousands. Ball knowledge car mod number 5, adjustable cam gears. Having a clear timing cover with some adjustable cam gears poking out is a great way to show you know ball. People with adjustable cam gears know how to get every little bit of performance out of their engines and are low-key classy about it. You'll see a lot of these on RBs, JZs, EJs, BK and F series engines, you name it, this mod is super universal, as long as your car has an engine. The benefit of these adjustable cam gears is that it helps you slow or advance the timing. You can slide it slightly forward or slightly backwards. This is super helpful because not all engines are built the same. Whether you have different intakes or exhaust manifolds, it really won't matter because you'll be able to fine-tune the cam to do what your engine needs it to do. This mod really shows you know what's going on with the engine and you know how important little things can be. You're like a empath or something, I don't know. Ball knowledge car mod number 6, switching to a speed density map setup. When you switch to a manifold air pressure or intake air temp combo, then you're pretty much going from the kiddie pool to the big boy deep end. These mods show that you're getting really serious with your engine. Either you're throwing big turbos on your car and just need a more accurate way of reading your intake, or you're just looking for more reliable sensors that are going to be more accurate. The manifold air pressure sensor reads the air pressure inside of the manifold. Shocking, I know. And the intake air temperature sensor measures the intake air temperature. Also shocking. But when you combine these two, the ECU is able to calculate the total amount of air that's actually entering your engine and give you a proper air-fuel ratio. It does this with some weird equations. I don't know how it does it, but it does. If you add these sensors, you get a lot more freedom with your mods, allowing you to add bigger turbos, more boost, or larger injectors, since regular boring MAF sensors can limit airflow reading. Pretty much all heavily modded cars are going to be running a MAP or IAT sensor. So I'm basically saying if you want to be cool, then you need to have these things, dude. I don't have any of these things. Car knowledge ball mod number 7, water/methanol injection. This mod is crazy cool ball knowledge, guys. Why would you want to inject water or water with methanol into your engine? Good question. When you inject water into your engine, you're taking all of that heat and energy that's in the air before the combustion cycle to convert the water into water vapor. Basically taking thermal energy out of your engine or something. This helps you run a more aggressive tune on your car. You can advance ignition with less risk of pre-detonation. Mega win. Okay, but why would you want to add methanol to the mix? Once that water is turned into water vapor, it's useless. You can't blow up water. But if you add methanol, creating a 50-50 mix, then you get a combustible cooling gas, which is way more efficient, blah, 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 way more power. But you don't actually have to add the methanol part. You can still just use the water and take away some of that heat energy. You usually put the injector for your water and methanol mix somewhere around the throttle body, most likely after it. But you're gonna find this system hooked up to someone's car who knows hella ball knowledge. Trust me, guys, this is awesome. Because you know what else is awesome? Car mod ball knowledge number 8, cut and shut knuckles. This mod is really only popular in the drifting scene. People take the stock knuckles off their car and cut the tie rod connectors off the knuckle and weld it below and backwards to where it was originally. And this actually does a lot more than you'd think. It'll reduce Ackerman by moving the tie rod pickup closer to the center of the wheel. Ackerman is essentially where the inside of the wheel turns more into a corner than the outside of the wheel. This is pretty common in road cars and race cars, where it's helpful to keep both of the wheels on their own radius arcs since the inside wheel will be following a different arc than the outside wheel. It's just like f***ing math and shit. I think it's easier if you just say the outside wheel follows a bigger circle and the inside wheel follows a smaller circle type of shit. But when you're drifting, it's more helpful to have both wheels pointing in the same direction so that you know you're driving straight. Since it's like you're driving straight at the front of the car, but the back is like driving sideways or something. I don't know. Other than less Ackerman, this mod is a great way for more angle for cheap, which is essential for throwing some sick backies or just getting more angle in your drifts. You can get something like 50 degree or more angle for pretty pretty much free if you have the correct tools. That's a steal. Another great benefit of moving the tie rod closer to the center of the steering axis is a faster steering response, which makes the car feel a lot more responsive when you're sliding. Super worth and crazy ball knowledge mod. Ball knowledge mod number 9, porting the head of your engine. If you port the head of your engine, you probably know some ball knowledge, meaning you're a race car driver or something. We know at this point. Doing this mod definitely means you have a spiritual understanding of how your car works and how small things like taking a little material off your head ports helps the engine. There's plenty of good reasons to port the head of your engine. Maybe you're just looking to clean up the casting flaws, or maybe you could be matching up an aftermarket intake or exhaust manifold so you don't have a lip between the two if they don't line up perfectly, or even just creating more space for airflow. A lot of these will probably benefit the engine, helping the turbo spool faster if you have one, faster engine response, even giving you cooler charge temps for compressed air if you have a turbocharger. Porting your engine can be super hard and is super easy to mess up. So if you have a ported engine, you definitely have extreme ball knowledge. This was my list on ball knowledge car mods. Let me know if I missed any. Thanks, G. If you're watching this video right now instead of then you might need some budget car ball knowledge. Who doesn't want a cheap, awesome car? Doesn't sound very realistic, right? It feels like you can only choose 2 out of cheap, reliable, and fast. But luckily, there's some cars out there that almost check all 3 boxes. This is budget car ball knowledge. The 1995 to 2009 Subaru Outback XT or Legacy GTB. Guys, these cars are bangers! If you'd like to track your car, rally it, or even daily drive it, this thing will get it done. The interior is comfortable, and there's plenty of space inside for grabbing some bulky groceries. You might even be able to conquer a Costco run with one of these bad boys.
We're Costco guys. Of course we
Have a 2009 Subaru Outback XT.
Since these things don't use too much fuel, you're going to be driving them everywhere. The 2.5 liter flat 4 is pretty sweet. The Legacy GT makes a monstrous 265-ish horsepower and 250 foot-pound of torque, depending on the generation. The Outback XT makes lower but similar numbers. An awesome part about these engines is that they bring the center of gravity lower to the ground, which improves handling quite a lot. These cars will turn your local dirt roads into full-blown rally courses. These cars rip stock, but will drive even better with a suspension upgrade. Don't even worry about driving it too hard because the 5-speed manual gearbox is known for being incredibly durable. Even the less sportier versions of these cars will still rip. A good Subaru Outback or Legacy will set you back around $2,000 to $6,000. It's a kind of wide range, but there's a lot of cars out there. The Jeep Cherokee XJ, 1984 to 2001. Hell yeah, brother. If you like to get your hands dirty and you're always digging around in the mud, then the Jeep Cherokee XJ might be just the car for you. Arguably considered the first true SUV. This thing has a relatively light unibody chassis, an excellent 4-wheel drive system, and either a bulletproof 4-banger or a more favorable inline 6, putting out 190 horsepower and 255 foot-pounds of torque. Both of these engines are known to last around 300,000 miles. Well, that's with regular maintenance, of course. Don't just let this thing rot. The Jeep Cherokee XJ is capable of conquering any dirt road you throw at it, and capable of getting over a lot of crazy technical stuff. Also, they look so nice. Holy moly. If you want to build this thing up for real and throw on some strong aftermarket parts or even a lift kit, don't worry. There's a big market for this stuff. These cars are a great platform for a sick off-roading setup, and honestly, these things look so nice for the price. Expect to find a working XJ on the market for around $2,500 to $5,000. Okay, next up, we have kind of a surprising one. People don't usually see this on the budget lists. The Honda Civic. I'm just fucking with you. Everybody knows the Honda Civic. The Honda Civic is a cult classic, an all-around reliable, fun, cheap car, and very moddable. These cars can do anything from gapping a Hellcat in a drag race to picking mushrooms off the side of your local backroad corner. Honda Civics kind of have a heroic history. These cars were born from an oil crisis in 1972, requiring a need for more fuel-efficient and reliable cars. Then bang! Just like that, Honda locked in real quick and made this shit. The Honda Civic carries a great racing background with its lightweight chassis, high-revving engines, and precise steering coming from from Honda's Formula One experience. The modding scene for these cars is so popular that you'll probably come across an ad for some Civic parts just by scrolling through your Instagram homepage. Because of the popularity, swap kits, aftermarket parts, and mods are super easy to find and really cheap. This is probably one of the cheapest cars to find on this list, costing around $2 grand to $4 grand. Whether you're looking to upgrade the fuck out of this car or enjoy a bone stock, it's a very solid choice. Okay, now we have another banger from Subaru. What do you know about the Subaru Forester? It is a fantastic shout for everything. Anything you can do to a car, you can do to a Forester. Fuck it, off-road this car, grab groceries in it, and of course go to the track in this thing. The Forester was built on an Impreza platform, which means it's got a very solid all-wheel drive system with that nice Subaru classic 50-50 split. And I believe they're mechanical, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's really cool. This thing is really great for rally and off-roading. Also, the parts are interchangeable with a lot of WRX parts if you want to upgrade. Subaru built the Forester with the idea of it being a tough SUV for people who actually go on adventures and do things, but with the drivability of a normal car. Subaru also made a sportier version of this car with a turbo, which is a little more expensive, but still possible for an affordable price, the Forester XT. With ground clearance of about 8 inches, these cars are surprisingly good at off-roading. I think one of the best parts about this car is its interior, with a very simple design and a very roomy feeling. It's hard to beat. The average price of an old running Forester is somewhere around $3 to $6 grand. The Forester is definitely some ball knowledge. The Volvo 740 and 240. If you've watched my channel for more than a minute, you probably already know how great Volvo is. I love Volvos. Here's some crazy budget shouts. The 1987 to 1993 Volvo 240 and the 1987 to 1990 Volvo 740. Yes, sir. These things can take a head-on collision with like 6 or 7 Cybertrucks and not even have a scratch on them. Other than being built like bedrock, these things can get down. The 240 has a rear-wheel drive system and the 740 has an all-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive powered by the B230 FT or B230F. The B230 FT engine packs a humble 165 to 175 horsepower stock and an easy 300 horsepower with some plastic surgery. The B230F engine has 115 to 135 stock and around 200 to 250 with the forbidden snail setup, which is more than enough horsepower to get a Swedish teenager driving sideways. A great part about these cars is most parts are interchangeable. Yeah, Volvo pulled some weird Alabama cousin shit and reused a lot of parts across different cars. So luckily for us, parts are easier to find and a lot easier to install. You could probably find one of these cars for around $2,500 to $5 grand stock, and for just another $2,000 to $3,000, you can modify this bad boy to go from Swedish and boxy to Speedish and foxy. Overall, these cars are a great, solid budget choice if you're looking to have fun sliding around and crashing into things. The 2000 Honda CR-V. Please hear me out on this one. The 1997 to 2001 Honda CR-V with the B20B or Z is the perfect sleeper car you can buy for cheap. They look funky and cool, they're super reliable, and you can easily throw a turbo on these engines. The B20B is a solid iron block engine that comes from the legendary B-Series family, which makes it compatible with a lot of B-Series parts. Big win! You could probably find a beat-up CR-V for around $1,000, but if you want to spoil yourself, maybe $2,000 for that nice interior. To make this thing as badass as I'm saying it could be, you're gonna need the following: a turbo kit, ECU, tune, map sensor, fuel pump, and injectors. Sounds like a whole lot of debt, right? No, bitch! You're only gonna be down like $3 to $4 grand. This setup will probably have the engine at like 250 to 300 wheel horsepower comfortably and reliably, or 400 if you're ready to send a piston to the moon. Parts are readily available and cheap since it's a B-Series engine. This budget CR-V is an all-around fun car to drive. It can go anywhere, it looks reasonably cool, and yeah, twin, just get one already. Also, they have a table in the trunk, dude. And for camping purposes, the seats go all the way down very nicely, just so you know. We all know that no car brands are perfect, and somewhere along the way, they always hire someone who comes up with a really shitty idea. We have BMW making you pay monthly for heated seats, and then we got the PT Cruiser just looking ugly. I want to just talk about some of the worst car fumbles of all time. First of all, we got the Cybertruck, of course. I'm gonna just drop this one in Cybertruck tier. I don't even want to talk about it. But next I want to talk about a more important one, the Pontiac Aztek. It came out in 2001, and it was meant to be like a gateway into the more young traveler type of people, but instead it's just really shitty. It comes with a tent, which is kind of cool. I don't even know if it was a good tent though, but the interior was bad, the price was bad, it was super expensive, and the car just just looked like shit from a butt. And surprisingly, it struggled off-roading, considering like it's meant to be an off-roading car. I don't know how they managed to do that. Also, for some reason, they didn't really hit the outdoorsy market. They actually hit the meth cooking market, and Walter White drove this car. For that reason, I'm gonna give it a B tier. So when Dodge released the Hellcat, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew who was gonna buy this car. Their target audience loves this car, even enough to steal it, honestly. Obviously, they didn't really stick with the trends with their success. So yeah, they released an electric car. They made an electric Hellcat. The only way that this is better than normal Hellcats is that you can quietly slide on the ops. I suppose they were trying to pivot to a new audience. Definitely giving this one C tier. When I was 16 years old, I got my full driver's license. Finally, I was able to go anywhere that I wanted, that my Honda Civic could go at least. But can you imagine if you had that freedom when you were 15 or even younger? When I was 15, my freedom was wherever my parents would drive me or like my bike. And that brings me to Reliant Motors. What do you know about Reliant Motors? These cars are the biggest fumble ever. This bike company tried to make cars and they were still legally considered bikes. If that's not a fumble, I do not know what is. The first car was made in Williams' backyard, and they just like figured out how to build this car themselves, which I give them respect for. People who are broke and didn't want that much road tax or didn't have a license drove this car. So whenever you see one of these on the road, you better steer clear because they will probably get you in an accident. Even though this car has 3 wheels, that's not what it's famous for. It's famous for tipping over. These cars would just roll around. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, they're super slow. The engine only has 30 horsepower and the 1-cylinder engines top out at 60 miles an hour. So wait, if they made a V8, would that mean it would have like 240 horsepower with a top speed of 480 miles an hour? Okay, well, let's say worst case, you end up with one of these cars. It might be fun. I mean, in like a stupid way, it might be fun to drive around, but you do not want to back up hills, trust me. I mean, not that I have any experience in these cars, but what I've heard is that these things will tip over badly if you reverse up a hill. I think the police actually drove these cars a little bit in the UK. If you were getting pulled over by one of these, it would be like, thank God, because you could just tip them over and then keep driving. What are they gonna do? I fucking hate Reliant Motors. I'm gonna give Reliant Motors a D tier. So I just want to touch on the BMW cup holder epidemic. In the older BMWs, they just did not have any cup holders. I guess it was to improve the driving experience because when you're driving really hard, you don't want to put your drink down. But honestly, I do want to have a drink while I'm fucking driving. Not in the bad way. I guess the ultimate driving experience is just putting your drink in the fucking glove box. I consider this a major fumble. Let me know what you think in the comments though. While Subarus are some of the best off-roading or like rally type of cars, they also fumbled super badly on one of their cars. The Subaru WRX STI. I know you're surprised that I said that, but it'll just fucking blow up and burn. I mean, enjoy the car while you can. I'm sure it'll be really fun. Just don't push it too hard because it will actually blow up and fucking blow up. Giving it an A tier. Even if you're not time traveling, the DeLorean is super unreliable. They look kind of cool in my opinion, but it's just a V6. It has the power of a 4-cylinder and the gas mileage of like a V8. Super unreliable, just not cool cars at all. I'm gonna give this one a B tier. So we all know Mustangs are a symbol of awesome in the USA. Maybe a symbol of awesome everywhere. That's why people are always bringing them to car meets. Old people, young people, whoever. They're just bringing them to car meets and then they're fucking crashing them. People's feet are way too heavy in these cars. They have a lot of power. Terrible handle. You step on the gas, you're gonna go sideways. That's all. I don't know if this is a car fumble or if this is a buyer fumble, but it's a fumble. They're just always ending up in a crowd. I think the Mustang's gonna be the first S-tier fumble because it's not actually their fault. So the older Mercedes E-Class is a hard one for me to absolutely hate because they're really good cars. Like they're pretty, I mean, they're quick, they handle well, whatever, comfortable on the inside. They just look so fucking ugly. Oh my God. The 4 headlights, they look like fried eggs. Steve Madden is the one behind this. He's the designer of that car. Holy shit. Another Mercedes fumble is that you have to make a yearly payment of $1,200 to maintain your car's full capabilities. I'm talking horsepower, torque, 0 to 60 time being dropped by 1 second. Like, are you kidding me? $1,200 on top of owning a Mercedes already? A year? That's crazy. Imagine you just buy a really nice Mercedes and then you don't make the payments and now it's slow. That would just feel so bad. I think I'm gonna have to drop Mercedes right above the Cybertruck because this really pisses me off. I live pretty close to Canada, so 6 months out of the year, I'm pretty much freezing my ass off every day. That's why I drive a BMW, because my heated seats get heated so quickly. But the newer BMWs, they make you pay monthly just to warm your ass up. This is a major fumble. BMW, I want to give you an F tier for you. I want to say, I don't think it's always the car brands that are fucking up. I think it's the drivers. A lot of people, when they first get a car, when they first get their Honda Civic, they really want to modify it and get some more power out of those 4 cylinders. So the first thing that they do is get a K&N intake filter. K&N is kind of a major fumble. Those cone filters that you just put in the engine bay, those are hot air intakes. That just makes your engine less efficient and more noisy. I mean, I think the noise sounds cool, but it just makes it slower. My personal favorite thing to do is just get a high flowing filter for your stock airbox. It makes the car faster and makes it like drive how it's supposed to. So to the people getting the K&N cone filters and you don't have like good airflow, A-tier fumble, because at least you're trying to modify your car. On the same note with modifying your car, aisle 5 in AutoZone is the biggest fumble of all time in the auto history. Biggest fumble that has ever happened is aisle 5 in AutoZone. You can see people building the goofiest cars just using the stuff that they find in aisle 5 at AutoZone. The people working the cash register at AutoZone are always laughing at you when you get something from aisle 5. I mean, we've all been there. It's kind of a canon event. Yeah, I mean, what do they have there? They just have like Cherry Bomb muffler deletes and like Transformers Autobot stickers and stuff. Like, what? I don't want to see that on people's Toyota Corolla. Aisle 5 at AutoZone is definitely a B-tier fumble. I'm about as broke as shit, which makes it really fun to think about what I could drive one day if I had a ton of money to spend on dumb stuff like a Hellcat swapped Miata. Here's some cars I would build. For just going around town and grabbing groceries, I need a built mini truck. Maybe a Volkswagen Rabbit, first gen Taco, Chevy S10, or like a Nissan Frontier. I don't know, just one of those little old small trucks. Hear me out. I want to swap one of these with a turbo 4-banger, like a K24 or an SR20. That'll be so sick, right? If I get the Volkswagen Rabbit, I'd probably just keep it diesel though. I'd want this thing to be a race car truck. I'm talking tube chassis with a little fire extinguisher, of course, bucket seats, aftermarket steering wheel, a gauge cluster on the A-pillar, and all the little things that go into a race truck. I want this thing to sound mean too. I'm thinking high flow cats. And then just some basic other little things like a vibrant ultra quiet resonator or some sort of like basic Flowmaster Sport muffler. I don't really care, nothing crazy. I'd probably weld a drone pipe on too because I don't fuck with drone. I'd get a nice blow off valve for the SR20, and I'm thinking a sequential gearbox with straight cut gears. Is that crazy? Should it be a 6-speed manual? I'd probably do the Sadev SL90 if I was gonna do sequential straight cut gears. But then I need a custom bell housing. Well, good thing I'm rich in this hypothetical world because I'd probably have my own CNC machine. Anyway, by the end, it would be like a mini Hoonicorn super truck. Super mini super truck. For getting groceries, of course. For my other grocery getter, I'd definitely go for a BMW, of course, E91 335D M Sport. Apparently, these aren't that cool if you live anywhere outside of the US. But alas, I live in the US. I would love to have a built-up E91 335D and maybe even figure out how to put a 6-speed manual in this thing. I know that doesn't sound likely, but remember, I have a lot of money in this unrealistic, hypothetical, fake-ass freaking world, so I can basically do whatever I want. I love the way the E91 looks, especially the LCI version. I think this car with an M57 engine would be so sick. Saddle interior, blue exterior, 30% tint. I would definitely get rid of all of the emissions regulations because these engines aren't that loud and they sound so cool. I'd probably put a Sundown 12 in the back because wagons deserve a little bit of bass. A lot of people take the roof rails off these cars, but if I were to get a diesel wagon, I would want to use this thing for everything. I'd definitely keep the rails up there for a bike or a snowboard or something. Fun fact, E90s come with a ski bag in the back seat. Between these two grocery getters, I'd take both. The homie hauler. Everybody needs a car that you can just haul your friends around in, and it has to be super cushy, at least like in a rich hypothetical universe fake thing. My homie hauler would be a Cadillac Escalade V. These cars are long as shit and badass as shit. They look like big spy cars. I think a fully blacked out one of these would look insane. I want this thing to be a straight up bad guy car.
Gassy.
What the heck is a bad guy car?
Not like I'm a bad guy or anything, but I would want to look like a bad guy.
You know what I'm saying?
These things have those nice V8s. I'd make sure it's got a pretty low stance, 5% tint on the windows, and all that stuff. A true homie hauler. I'd probably put some subwoofers in the trunk, a Starlight headliner for my buddies in the back seats to enjoy, and holy shit, can you imagine pulling up to your friend's house in one of these things? They're so badass until you have to park. But that wouldn't be my only homie hauler, because I have too many friends. Anyway, my other homie hauler would be a 1969 Ford Aurora. You may be yelling at the screen and punching the air right now because why in the world would I choose this car? The passenger seat swivels around. How fucking badass is that? And also, look at how the doors open. It looks like Moses moving the ocean apart or something. I would make this as cushy as possible. I'd double up on the sound deadening, tint the windows, I'd keep the stock exhaust probably, and just make this thing an absolute beast of a homie hauler. Call me crazy, but does this thing need a diesel engine? Like a 7.3 liter Ford Power Stroke? It sounds crazy, but imagine how much ass this thing would haul. And would probably get dumb miles per gallon too, as long as your friends aren't fat. Out of these two options, I'm definitely going with the Ford. My muddy buddies are the cars that I would absolutely drive to the bone. I would want these cars to be tough, fun, and unbreakable. Here's some options that I'm thinking of. The Toyota Hilux is the best truck that the US never got. These things are perfect. If I were to modify a Hilux, I would want to make this thing a workhorse. Big tires, off-roading lights, seats in the bed of the truck. I'd give it a slight lift, but nothing crazy. I wouldn't want any kind of beautiful interior or anything though, because when I'm out jumping sand dunes with my Arab friends or wheeling around in the mud, I'd want this thing to be able to get dirty. I might have a custom bumper with a winch and stuff just for the looks. If I see someone stuck in a ditch, I'd probably just drive right the fuck past them. LOL! Anyway, if you don't know much about the Hilux, it's like a Tacoma but better in every way possible. And diesel. So yeah, that's why I want to build one of these bad boys up. But would this be as cool as a Traxxas ass truck build? We've all seen those crazy Traxxas trucks. The trucks with absolutely no space in the bed, but absolutely insane off-roading abilities. They're fast as fuck and have really good suspension. I'm not talking about the remote control cars. I mean the real ass, human controlled ass truck thingy. But I don't know what I would start this build off of. The Traxxas trucks look so different from any other truck. Maybe a second gen Tacoma? Anyway, then I would toss like $20,000 in suspension upgrades onto this thing and call it good. As fun as that would be, I don't know if this would be as practical as a built up Subaru. You know the old Subaru 2.5 RS? One of the cleanest looking Subarus of all time? Well, guess what? There's a better one, of course. The 90s Subaru WRX STI. They look the same pretty much, but these STIs are just better in every way in my opinion. If I was to get into rally racing, I would definitely want to start a build off of something like this. Honestly, I would keep the stock ride height, but I'd upgrade the quality of the suspension. I'd do a tasteful exhaust, but the interior would be gutted. Well, not like gutted. Let me tell you all about it. Block dash, bucket seats, little fire extinguisher of course, and we're done. Oh wait, roll cage, you can't forget that. Anyway, this thing would be pretty raw, so definitely not a daily. Are you guys familiar with the old Audi Quattros? They were kind of on top back in the day, so maybe that would be a better option as a muddy buddy car. They have those sweet 5-cylinder engines which sound damn nice. And they're kind of on top for all-wheel drive. So I think out of these options, my favorite is the Hilux build, although I'd have to deal with importing it. I think it would just be the coolest and most unbreakable muddy buddy. Did someone say they have a Canyon that needs to be carved? Hold on, let me tell you about my Honda S2K build. I know these things are already perfect for Canyon carving from the factory, but I have a few upgrades in mind. Honestly, everything I'm going to be doing for this thing is for handling, because I wouldn't want insane power for Canyon carving. I think the S2K makes enough power for me already. So anyway, I'd just do coilovers, stiffer sway bars, I do front and rear strut tower braces, and just harder polyurethane bushings for all the suspension components. I'm gonna be as generic as shit for the wheels. I'm gonna do some NK RPF 1s and Michelin PS2s. All of this grip and go-kartage, you've got to be able to stop, right? Because this thing is gonna carry speed right through the corners. That's where the big brake kit comes along. I do the Brembo GT kit. Obviously this car is pretty light, so be able to stop with stock brakes, but for Canyon carving, brake fade is pretty real. Other than this, I'd just do an LSD, short shifter, and some comfortable bucket seats. I want to keep this thing pretty stock looking and sounding, but just do all the small things to make it handle and drive that much better. My flashy, crashy cars. Yup, these are just the cars that I'd want in my driveway just so people can see that I'm that bad freaking ass. And I'd probably pull up to car shows with these or something. It's the E24 633 CSI, of course. I think if the Batmobile was tasteful, this is what it would look like. For my E24 build, I wouldn't want to make it that sporty. Of course, I'd drive it like it's meant to be driven, but I just like the way they look too much to risk crashing it. This is kind of unlike me, but I'd put this thing on bags for sure. sure. I'd keep it relatively OEM plus. I've seen a lot of builds with these cars where people wide body the crap out of them and stuff, and I don't think I'd want to do that for my car. And I just want to make it more tasteful. Probably a black paint job with a brown interior. My inspiration for a build like this would be Lee Curtis's 87 635 CSI. In my opinion, this is about as close to perfect as you can get with a BMW. Although his is an automatic, which would not be the case for mine. And I don't really like those window stickers that he put on this thing. I think they're a little bit tacky. Let me know what you think about those in the comments. My other flashy, crashy car would be the Mercedes 190E. It's another one of my favorite German cars. These things are so mean looking and could definitely use some gassy love. By gassy love, I'm thinking grandpa spec, except awesome. I wouldn't mod the body of this car since I think the fenders already stick out enough and look cool. I'd do a tasteful exhaust with quad tips at the back. I probably wouldn't do headers or remove any cats, but I would just do a smaller, higher flowing resonator and muffler on this thing. Is it too much to put on chrome BBS RSs? They're so nice looking, but almost too much, you know? I'll stick with these unless you guys can think of something better. Also, some Michelin PS4s to help stick to the ground. Hellcat swapped Miata. I would never do that. For my next category of cars that I would definitely build and own if I was rich, we got clowning around. An all-wheel drive swapped John Cooper Works R53 Rally Mini. These things are tiny and handle like go-karts. The only setback about these minis is that they're front-wheel drive. Can you imagine this thing with a 60/40 all-wheel drive system? That would be so cool. I'd want to build from the R53 Mini since it's supercharged, which would be nice for rally since it has such a predictable power band. These cars have such a short wheelbase that you can turn them around any damn corner. Anyway, I'd upgrade the supercharger by putting a smaller pulley on it. I'd gut the interior, tube it, bucket seats, sunroof delete to take the weight off the top of the car, short shifter, and bang! Rally Mini. Let me know what else I should do to this thing because I think that's about as good as it could get. Today I'm going to be talking about some cheap whippable cars that you should definitely pick up if you're looking for a new car. I'll talk about their reputation for being whippable and overall whippability. The Honda Fit is a monster on wheels. Okay, not really, but guys, this is definitely in the top 5 for most whippable cars. While being the price of a discount deal at Domino's, this car brings some solid performance to the table. The Honda Fit makes a very flaccid 130 horsepower, but it makes up for it by being very light and nimble. These bad boys come with a manual transmission or a CVT. The only real choice is manual, of course. With a slow-ass car and a sweet manual transmission, this thing will have you shifting Fast and Furious style, blowing through every gear like Trump to Clinton. Make fun of the Honda Fit all you want. It does look a little bit like a clown car and makes as much horsepower as my monthly paycheck, but guys, once this thing hits a track, it's unstoppable. This is no secret either. I guarantee if you head to your local track on an open track day, you'll probably see more Honda Fits than there are supercars. This car is so damn whippable. You gotta hear this. A team entered a 25-hour endurance race in 2011 with a 2010 Honda Fit B-Spec and ended up passing a Porsche 911 GT3 in wet conditions. They ended up finishing 15th overall out of 83. They beat a Corvette Z06, a Porsche 911 Turbo, a Dodge Viper SRT10, and some GTRs in testing. The handling on these go-karts is super nimble and responsive due to the fuel tank and engine being mounted surprisingly low to the ground, creating a nice low center of gravity. The car's weight is evenly distributed too, which is super nice. The wheelbase is really short, which helps a lot too. Something I find weird about this car is that it low-key sounds really nice with an exhaust mod for some reason. So that's a big plus. Unfortunately, there are some downsides to this car, of course. It's front-wheel drive, which some people fuck with, but in my mind, front-wheel drive kind of narrows down the whippability of this car. This would be a top 3 most whippable car, but I had to move it down the list because of the front-wheel drive. But it does make the car lighter, so law of equivalence or whatever. The GR Corolla. Right out of the factory, the GR Corolla is a race car, and Toyota isn't even trying to hide it. The GR stands for Gazoo Racing, which was initially the name of Toyota's motorsport program that competed in Le Mans, WRC, and endurance races like the Nürburgring 24-hour. So with the backbones of a performance-oriented company, you can expect this car to be quite freaky. This car gets its freak on by making 300 jacked-ass ponies and 295 foot-pounds of torque out of a tiny 1.6-liter inline-3 turbocharged engine. Shoving 300 horsepower into an engine that size probably took some crazy engineers. Believe it or not, that 300 horsepower isn't even close to its limit. PowerTune Australia, a tuning company out of, you guessed it, Australia, tuned a GR Yaris, which has the same engine as the Corolla, to a wild 740 horsepower with, get this, stock internals. Other things had to be upgraded though, the turbo, head studs, and other little things, but if this is not a testament to how strong and badass these engines are, I don't know what is. Other than the little monster in the GR Corolla's engine bay, it has some more freak to leak. That 300 horsepower and 295 foot-pounds of torque that I mentioned earlier is put to the ground using a 6-speed manual transmission or an 8-speed direct automatic transmission. The car is pulled forwards or backwards with Toyota's GR4 system all-wheel drive, and believe it or not, it's actually good. But you're probably asking me, Gassy, how do you know it's good? Toyota has 8 WRC titles under their greasy belts. While the drivetrains from their WRC cars are not the same as their production cars, you can trust Toyota knows how to make a good drivetrain. The specific all-wheel drive system that's in the GR Corolla can in fact get down. It has an adjustable 60-40, 50-50, 30-70 split, depending on how crazy you're feeling. With all of these parts put together, you're gonna have a very whippable Corolla. These cars whip amazingly on gravel, tarmac, snow, ice, you name it, it will whip it. The GR Corolla's shorter wheelbase, light chassis, and sporty suspension lets you whip it about as hard as crap. Driving this car will have you feeling like a real rally driver. The Subaru BRZ. The Subaru BRZ is extremely whippable as long as you're not lowering it to the floor. These things handle extremely well and they're pretty fun to drive. Being rear-wheel drive with a manual transmission, this bad boy is a pretty good option. Stock, these cars make like 230 horsepower with their Subaru Boxer engines, which is then used perfectly by the short gearing of the manual transmission and real LSD. I'd say this is pretty close to the sweet spot as far as power goes. You can put the pedal on the floor and you won't die, but you'll also have enough power to have fun. The chassis and wheelbase are known for being very controllable, so much so that it's known as the modern day S chassis in the drifting community. The chassis and engine combo is also very popular with rally drivers. The Dirtfish Rally School uses Subaru BRZs for their rear-wheel drive class. Luckily, this thing has a cheap engine in case you need to replace it and an overall lower center of gravity. Remember, these engines are Subaru Boxers, so head gaskets. But they can actually be surprisingly reliable if you maintain them correctly. Most of the time when these engines blow head gaskets, it's because of poor maintenance and improper care. That being said, if they do break, the parts are relatively cheap and easy to come by. If you'd like to modify one of these cars, there are a ton of aftermarket parts out there. While these cars aren't as fast as crap on straight roads stock, they definitely make up for it in the corners. The factory suspension is already dialed in extremely well. The front of the car uses a MacPherson strut setup, which is lightweight aluminum. They have good suspension geometry for responsive steering and higher grip, while having more positive caster to improve the steering feel and responsiveness of the car. The rear of the car has a double wishbone and super well designed multi-link setup, creating a really solid rear end that keeps good contact with the ground at all times. The BMW E36 is the definition of a whippable menace. If you see a BMW E36 on the road, you know something is about to go down. The BMW E36 comes in a bunch of different trims that are all great, but if you're going for the most whippable trims, I'd go for at least a 325 or up, since they're going to come with a straight 6 and that's where the fun starts. You're going to be expecting to have around 190 to 240 horsepower with an unmodded E36, but the straight 6s in these cars are extremely fun to mod. Although you might have to be doing more preventative maintenance than you want to on these cars since they are BMWs, the chassis is pretty much perfect and is going to be as close to a 50-50 weight distribution as you're going to get in any car. And in my opinion, you can get them looking pretty nice and classy with a couple of cosmetic mods. And of course, with all of the cars on this list having a manual gearbox, this car has one as well. It's a 5-speed manual paired with rear-wheel drive and a nice limited slip differential if you're lucky, since they only come in a couple of models like the M3 or the 325i Winter Edition. But it's almost always a mystery if these things have LSDs. The best way to know is just to jack it up and check. What makes these cars crazy whippable is how cheap these these cars are up front. Or maybe I should say was, since the market has gone crazy these past couple of years, but they're still somewhat cheap compared to the other BMWs on the market. Where you really save money is with the parts for these dogs. Almost every junkyard is bound to have an E36 laying around that you can just yank some parts off of. Probably because they've been whipped too hard by a teenager trying his first clutch kick and then sending that thing upside down into a ditch. Once you get these cars dialed in for whipping, you won't be able to crash this thing if you try. They have such nice handling and good control that maybe even your girlfriend could drive it to the store and back without getting in an accident. Now for your favorite part, downsides. These things shit themselves, meaning they leave oil stains wherever they want. Another downside is that you might lose your hearing a bit since these things are built like tuna cans and you can hear everything outside of the car. But that doesn't matter since they're built to party. You can rally them, slide them, race them, mod them. Pretty much anything you can think of doing with this car, you can do with this car. And they have so much aftermarket support too. Get an E36, dude. The definition of a whippable car is literally the Miata. Saying it's the greatest of all time is an understatement. The saying slow car fast is the Miata. With the Miata turning out a very powerful and impressive 115 to 140 horsepower stock might make you think the Miata doesn't deserve the first place spot on this list. But I'm gonna have to disagree. This car weighs about as much as a homeless person's fully loaded shopping cart, making Miata so light and tight that you can carry hella speed through corners like no one's business. Driving a rear-wheel drive Miata with a manual transmission literally feels so good. It's like pretending a Glock is a bolt-action sniper rifle. Not to mention a chassis balance that gives the E36 a run for its money. These cars have too much steering angle. It's ridiculous. You can pop a U-turn within parking spaces, but you really don't need to use any of this awesome steering angle since the cars turn with the pedals. It's crazy. It's so easy to get the perfect amount of slip angle with these cars that when you're taking any corner, your steering wheel is pretty much straight. Even if you're still learning the ropes of driving, this car will be there for you. They will forgive you for your mistakes that would otherwise leave you with a guardrail as a passenger. And with traits like these, you already know that the aftermarket support is ridiculous. I mean, try and find me an engine that hasn't been swapped into a Miata. That's why Miatas dominate everywhere. They take up like 40% of the track days in autocrosses. I mean, these cars are just so good on tracks. There are countless racing series with just Miatas. And when you crash it, which you will, unless you're not whipping it hard enough, you can fix them for pocket change. The only real downsides of this car is that if you're over 6 feet tall, you might get decapitated like the giraffe in The Hangover, since your head is probably going to be sticking out of the top of this car. Overall, it's hard to find stuff to hate about this car other than it looking dumb as hell and a little bit fruity, but it won't matter since it's going to be hard to not look cool while whipping this car around every corner.